Kingdom of Granvald under siege.
Monsters swarm the last human master.
A soldier weeps in sheer terror.
Dark dragons fly under red skies.
A dragon unleashes a devastating blast.
Destruction reigns upon the human defenses.
Rubble falls amidst thick smoke clouds.
Monsters trample over the fallen soldiers.
A minotaur crushes a human soldier. Bloody chaos consumes the battlefield.
Fires rage toward humanity's extinction.
Inside a burning infirmary, a voice calls for the next wounded soldier to be brought forward. Wounded survivors lie on mats waiting.
The black-haired healer, Master Will, calls for the next patient while green light glows from his hands. Master Will declares he will heal them all and commands that the wounded be brought to him quickly.
As a green light surrounds a soldier, a long-haired man warns Master Will that the gate is about to be breached.
The long-haired man insists it is far too dangerous for a healer of Master Will's caliber to remain on the front lines.
Master Will glares back with fury, asking if he is being told to abandon his people.
He vows that he will not let humanity perish as long as he continues to heal them.
Master Will remembers a bloodied blonde woman who entrusted the lives of the people and the world to his power.
He recalls a dying man naming him the world's greatest healer while counting on him to carry on.
A sudden shout from Master Will rings out, breaking his concentration.
The black-haired man reacts with visible sweat and shock. Soldiers rush through a doorway, desperately calling out to find where Master Will is located.
A man in silver armor, the general, is carried in with a blood-soaked bandage where his arm was severed.
Master Will tells them to lay him down while the soldiers panic that the entire battle line will crumble without their leader.
Master Will stands over the fallen man and confidently declares that he will save the general's life.
He exclaims with a determined look that saving people is the very reason he is here.
Intense green magic flows from Master Will's hands, enveloping the general's mangled and missing limb.
A massive pillar of healing energy erupts into the room as the restoration process begins.
Muscle and bone begin to knit together miraculously under the influence of the glowing green aura. The hand and fingers fully reform as the light continues to pulse with power.
The general lies still within a circle of fading light, his body fully restored by the magic.
A soldier cheers with joy, announcing that the general has finally opened his eyes just as expected of Master Will.
The light-haired general sits up slowly, staring at his newly grown hand while the surrounding soldiers celebrate his recovery.
Master Will leans in close to speak with the man he just brought back from the brink.
The general stares coldly at his hand, his expression devoid of the expected gratitude.
Without warning, a sharp crack sounds as the general strikes Master Will across the face with a powerful punch.
The general clenches his fist and tells Master Will he did something completely unnecessary, leaving the healer baffled.
The surrounding soldiers look on in total disbelief, asking what the general is doing to his savior.
With glowing green eyes, the general shouts for everyone to shut up as a dark energy radiates from him.
He reaches down and firmly grips the hilt of his ornate sword.
Master Will looks up from the ground, paralyzed by confusion and a growing sense of dread.
A sickening squelch echoes as the general plunges his sword through Master Will's chest, causing the healer to scream in agony.
The general glares down at the dying healer, asking if it is this specific arm that refuses to let him die.
He lets out an animalistic roar of fury, his face contorted with rage and exhaustion. The general asks if a healer in the rear could ever understand the despair of facing monsters or their true suffering.
He spits out that Will heals him just when he thinks it's over, asking how many more limbs they are forced to lose. He gestures to the room and claims everyone feels the same, stating they simply don't want to fight this hopeless war anymore.
Master Will stares back with hollow eyes, stunned by the realization of the soldiers' hidden resentment.
Tense soldiers await the coming storm. A woman in purple robes tends to a man with a bandaged eye.
Master Will reels as he realizes his efforts were seen as a curse by the men he saved.
Darkness clouds his mind as he reflects on his journey to the front lines.
Despair consumes him as he faces the ultimate failure.
The general declares he is done suffering under Master Will's power while plunging a sword into the healer's chest.
He tells Master Will that humanity is doomed and he should fight his own battles while the healer tries to argue.
The realization that healers are fundamentally incapable of offensive magic leaves Master Will in silent shock.
Master Will cries out in desperation as the general leaves him to perish in the crumbling fortress.
A dragon prepares a lethal blast.
Draconic fire consumes the remaining bastion. Master Will sits alone in the ruins as debris falls around him. The dying general urges Master Will to run as he lies crushed beneath the rubble.
A scream of agony is cut short as the roof collapses.
An inferno erupts as the dragon's fire strikes.
Master Will closes his eyes in the middle of the destruction. He watches the terrifying monster and realizes the true horror the soldiers faced while he stayed safe in the rear. Master Will admits he only understood the battle from a distance. He curses his helplessness as his life fades. Memories of a simpler time surface when his healing magic brought joy to a small animal. He recalls being honored by the king as the world's greatest healer. A quiet realization echoes in the dark.
Master Will gnashes his teeth in regret, wishing he had the power to fight with his own hands.
A desperate hand reaches for a stone.
He stands small before the dragon's maw. With a final surge of defiance, he prepares to strike with the only weapon he has left.
His final thought of what he could have achieved is swallowed by the dragon's roar.
Glowing orbs swirl in a cosmic void.
A boy's eyes snap open suddenly.
Master Will wakes up in a peaceful bedroom, gasping as he looks out at a sunny day. He looks around the room in total disbelief. His attention is drawn to a sealed letter sitting on his desk.
He stares at the letter, his reflection in the mirror showing a much younger version of himself.
A cold sweat breaks across his face.
He stands in a crowded hallway clutching the letter as people pass by him in a blur. He questions if he has returned to that fateful day 5 years ago. Master Will remembers that he should have been killed by the dragon. He stares at the envelope, struggling to comprehend how he is alive.
He reflects on how his dying wish seems to have been granted.
His hand tightens around the letter with a sudden, fierce determination. Master Will vows to enroll in Schwartz Academia, the premier institution for offensive magic. He reflects on the absolute law that healers cannot use offensive magic. Watching the other students, he resolves to break through the barriers of common knowledge. He knows the path ahead will be difficult. He believes his memories and mastered healing magic will allow him to change the future. Master Will vows to save the world by becoming a fighter himself. The scene shifts to the grand halls of Schwartz Academia, where mages receive superior education. The academy is famous for turning anyone into a first-rate offensive mage. He recalls a silver-haired person from his past life who also hailed from this academy. Master Will acknowledges that their secret methods are the key to his new path. Will contemplates the challenge of enrolling in the academy as a healer.
He reflects on the institution's ability to create powerful offensive mages. He notes how the wealthy use their status to gain entry.
He laments being unable to bring his future wealth into the past.
He realizes his current earning potential won't meet the enrollment deadline.
A sudden voice at the door asks if he is awake.
His brown-haired sister enters, prompting a surprised reaction.
He's overwhelmed with emotion to see her alive again.
He hides his tears and gives her a warm good morning. They share a joyful morning interaction as she smiles again. He vows to use his magic to change her tragic destiny. He grabs her hands, excitedly claiming he has found a solution. He rushes out into the bright day, promising to explain later. The Magic Academy Alliance dictates all magical education in the kingdom. The chairman of the alliance also leads the prestigious Schwartz Academia.
Mysterious reports mention the chairman has stopped attending alliance duties. An ominous transition prepares to reveal the secret behind his absence.
Night settles over a grand mansion lit by warm lamps.
A man sits in a dark room, watching over a sleeping girl.
The young blonde girl lies in bed looking pained and feverish. A gentle hand reaches out to touch her sweating face.
The white-haired man, Alniram Goldgrand, speaks tenderly to his granddaughter, Marie.
He apologizes for the healer's failures and vows to find her help. He has spent his time devoted to nursing his sick granddaughter.
The healing magic of the current era is insufficient to cure her.
He sits in silent despair as the rain falls outside.
A flash of energy reminds him of what happened last time.
Will appears at the window, asking to be allowed to handle the situation.
He smiles with confidence as he balances on the windowsill at night.
He makes his bold entrance into the darkened room.
Alniram identifies him as the talented scholarship student from Hylech.
He questions the young man's decision to enter through a window. Will laughs and admits his previous death has made him much bolder. He reflects on the limited time they both had in his past life.
He confidently declares his ability to cure the girl's illness.
Alniram looks at him with suspicion and asks what he wants in return.
Will insists on treating the girl immediately as her condition is critical.
The two men lock eyes in a tense, silent exchange of resolve. Alniram yields and tells Will to show him what he can do.
Will sits by the bedside as the headmaster watches his every move.
He feels the headmaster's murderous intensity and recognizes his immense power. He takes a deep, steadying breath to prepare for the treatment.
He reaches out and gently takes the girl's hands in his.
A radiant green light erupts as he activates his high-level healing magic. He focuses on the complex formula required to cure Zora disease.
The blonde girl is surrounded by the brilliant glow of restoration.
She finally opens her eyes and Will expresses his deep relief. He reassures her that the danger has passed and she is fine. He tells her to take it easy as she stares at him with a blush. The girl responds shyly while hiding her face beneath the blankets.
Alniram asks Marie if she is truly feeling better.
The blonde girl gives her grandfather a joyful, healthy smile as she recovers. Tears of joy well up in Alniram's eyes as he witnesses the miracle.
Will stands by as the white-haired man accepts the reality of the successful treatment.
From outside the room, the man cries out in profound gratitude for his granddaughter's life.
Sitting together in a grand lounge, Alniram offers his sincere thanks to Will for his help.
Alniram offers a reward for his services, and Will claims his request will be simple to grant.
Will explains that he has mastered healing and has nothing more to gain from its study.
With a determined shout, the boy makes a plea that leaves the elderly master stunned.
He places a hand over his heart to emphasize the weight of his conviction. Alnyram questions why a gifted healer would choose to attend an offensive magic academy.
Will confirms his absolute understanding and resolve to follow this unconventional path.
Staring into the boy's eyes, Alnyram sees a fire that matches his own authority and drive.
The headmaster realizes he can use his power to facilitate this unique request.
A confident smile plays on Will's lips as he sees his goal finally within reach.
The two men seal their agreement with a firm, mutual handshake.
Their joined hands signify the start of a world-changing alliance between healer and master. In a dimly lit office, a long-haired official curses the headmaster's sudden and erratic decisions.
He expresses total shock at the chairman's outrageous behavior since his return to duties.
The man scoffs at the idea of a healer attempting Schwartz's rigorous offensive curriculum.
He glares at Will's application, labeling the boy as nothing more than a pampered healer.
A clear blue sky marks the official arrival of the Academy's grand entrance ceremony day. Massive crowds of students gather before the grand towering spires of Schwartz Academia.
Alnyram stands atop the stairs, overseeing the new generation of mages under his command.
The academy is detailed as a premier boarding school with vast training and research facilities. Students move through the massive library, an essential part of the institution's prestigious education. A vision of powerful mages highlights the academy's legacy of producing elite, kingdom-backed alumni.
Alnyram looks out over the formation of hopeful new students with a steady gaze.
Will acknowledges the immense difficulty of being the first healer to ever enroll in the academy. He holds on to the hope that this education will allow him to transform into a fighter.
A dark memory of the dragon's maw fuels his determination to never be helpless again.
Surrounded by his peers, he vows to seize this chance and rewrite his tragic destiny.
A sudden, heavy grunt sounds as the boy strains against an invisible weight.
The long-haired instructor gives the command to begin training as the students face their targets.
Will summons a magical circle but struggles to manifest the fire properly for the drill. A sharp, pained gasp escapes him as he pushes his magical limits to the breaking point.
A pathetic fizzle sounds as the magic dies out, leaving only a wisp of smoke.
The long-haired instructor declares his failure for the day while the other students mock him.
The teacher bars him from attending class until he can master a basic offensive blast. Will desperately asks for guidance, realizing he cannot progress without proper instruction.
A sharp click of the tongue sounds as the instructor refuses to waste time on a healer. He even denies him library access, threatening punishment if he dares to step out of line. A malicious grin spreads across the face of a blonde student watching the interaction.
Without warning, the blonde student blasts Will with fire, shouting for him to move.
A heavy thud echoes as Will is sent tumbling across the dry earth from the impact.
He gasps in pain and confusion, struggling to understand why he was just attacked.
The blonde student laughs, reminding him that this academy has no room for the weak.
He leans in close, cruelly telling the fallen boy that his injury is his own fault.
The instructor backs up the bully, suggesting that Will belongs in a healing school instead.
The blonde student, Ulpus, lets out a mocking laugh and tells him to find comfort among healers.
A heavy sigh drifts through the silent night.
Master Will laments his inability to manifest offensive magic.
He realizes the struggle will be immense. Healing and offensive magics utilize different power sources. A mage's state of mind determines their mana. Active mana creates destructive fire and explosions.
Healers possess only passive mana, preventing offensive use.
Master Will believes this academy knows the solution.
He struggles with his personal mana conversion attempts. He realizes the deep prejudice both peers and instructors hold. His thoughts are interrupted as a quick swish sounds.
He recalls another who once refined their mana here.
He trusts that his choice to enroll was correct.
He contemplates sneaking into the restricted academy library.
A sudden sharp voice demands to know his business.
He apologizes to the mysterious silver-haired woman standing nearby.
His attention shifts as a gentle rustle sounds. He gazes at the woman's stern and beautiful face.
He notices her hand resting casually on her sword.
Master Will recognizes her as his former comrade Veronica.
She was once an elite first-class offensive mage.
He mourns her tragic end in his previous life. He feels a deep nostalgia seeing her alive again. A sharp shing sounds as she prepares her weapon.
He panics as the silver-haired woman draws her blade.
She treats him as a suspicious and dangerous intruder.
She questions if he is truly training at night.
He frantically insists he is only practicing his drills. A crisp clink sounds as she sheaths her sword.
He asks for confirmation of her identity as Veronica.
She reprimands him for addressing a teacher so casually.
He is stunned to learn her current official status.
She explains her rapid promotion after skipping many grades.
He acknowledges her undeniable genius and legendary talent. He sees a perfect new opportunity for his breath. He believes she can provide the instruction he needs. Master Will asks to enroll in her specific class.
He begs for a chance to attend her lessons.
She admits she is not currently assigned any classes.
She describes her current role as an assistant instructor.
She laments that no students ever seek her advice.
He knows her intense presence terrifies the other students. He asks if he may consult her as a student.
She tests his resolve regarding a healer's offensive potential.
She notices a strange anomaly in his personal mana.
She identifies him as the healer everyone is discussing.
They discuss the extreme rarity of his unique goals.
He mentions the legendary method for refining active mana. She confirms the method exists and offers her tutelage.
A fierce determination shines brightly in his eyes.
Veronica explains that the boy possesses an excessive amount of passive mana.
Active mana would simply dissolve away.
Offensive magic formulas won't function properly.
In the quiet courtyard, Will asks if there truly is no way for a healer to use offensive magic, but she admits she knows of none.
Frustration builds in the boy as he vows to create his own method if one does not exist.
He thanks the woman and prepares to leave, stating he will think about the situation on his own. She stops him in his tracks by declaring that their conversation is not yet finished.
The silver-haired woman reveals there is a specific way for a healer to become an offensive mage.
Confused by her statement, Will asks for clarification on what she means.
She draws her iron sword, noting it is a tool meant to cut down and defeat enemies.
Pointing toward a wooden bench, she observes that its intended purpose is for sitting.
She effortlessly lifts the heavy bench with one hand, asking if he could use it to knock someone down despite his thin arms.
She explains that people ignore such uses because objects are made for different purposes, but he is free to use things as he wishes.
A soft swish sounds as she raises her hand, stating the same principle applies to his own hands.
The woman gently places her gloved hand on the boy's cheek, causing him to blush in surprise.
Her fingers rest upon his chin. A sharp thwack sounds as she flicks his forehead, prompting a loud yell of pain from the boy.
She asks if she was too rough while the boy cries and insists he is fine. Veronica explains the core lesson that anything can become a weapon depending on how the user chooses to utilize it.
A realization strikes the boy as he contemplates the possibility of using healing magic for offensive purposes.
A small, knowing smile appears. Standing under the night sky, the boy wonders why he never considered this, while she notes the nature of the mind and innate mana.
She notes that mages of opposite disciplines are usually uninterested in each other, while fire and water blobs sulk.
The silver-haired woman looks at him intensely, stating that he is likely an exception to the rule.
She notes his choice to enroll in an offensive academy makes him special, and his mana is not that of a pure healer.
Will looks at his hand, questioning if his regression has altered the state of his magical energy.
A crisp shing sounds as she levels her blade at him, telling him he must recognize his own potential.
She stares intensely over her blade.
She declares that once he recognizes this truth, his healing magic will be capable of shattering any enemy.
The following morning, the scene shifts to the academy courtyard where the students are gathered for training.
Will reflects on the unique examples Professor Veronica shared, feeling as though scales have fallen from his eyes.
He watches her from a distance, wondering why she lacks the typical aversion offensive mages hold toward healers. The long-haired instructor addresses him only as healer, a slight that the boy notes with inward disappointment.
The instructor announces one-on-one mock battles and orders Will to participate due to the odd number of students.
He cruelly states that Will's inability to use offensive magic is his own fault and that he brought this situation on himself.
A malicious grin spreads wide. He officially matches Will against the blonde student, Opus, for the upcoming duel.
Will recognizes the pairing as an obvious setup while the instructor continues to snicker behind him.
Opus Omen, a skilled noble from a famous family, stands confidently before his followers.
Will observes that the blonde boy possesses genuine talent and is not simply relying on his family name for status. Opus mocks him, asking if he will seek comfort from his mother after being beaten to a pulp.
Will maintains a calm exterior, though he privately notes how much the blonde student's personality irritates him.
Anger pulses through the frustrating boy.
Will calls out to the professor, who immediately snaps that he will not accept any forfeit from the boy.
Raising a finger, the boy clarifies that he is not forfeiting but has a specific proposal to make.
He acknowledges his lack of offensive talent and agrees that continuing as they have been is a waste of time.
He boldly declares that if he loses this match, he will quit the academy entirely.
The long-haired instructor smiles at the suggestion, calling it a wise and sensible decision.
In exchange for his victory, the boy asks to be allowed to attend regular classes, though the instructor finds the request presumptuous.
A loud laugh erupts from the official as he agrees to the high-stakes terms of the duel.
The blonde student mocks the weakling for relying on fantasy to face his fears.
He smiles maliciously, stating it is no fun unless there is something to crush.
The instructor dismisses the discussion as a waste of time and accepts the high-stakes duel.
He orders both of them to take their positions for the match.
Master Will and the blonde student face each other in the academy courtyard.
A sharp whump sounds as the instructor raises his hand and signals to begin.
Opus concentrates, surrounding himself with a swirling golden energy.
A quick swishing sounds as the blonde student manifests a circle of glowing magical daggers.
He boastfully introduces his knife creation magic, threatening to skewer the boy with his blades.
He mocks the healer as a dropout who cannot manage basic offensive magic. A sudden whoosh sounds as someone moves with incredible speed across the ground. A soft whir sounds as Master Will focuses, pressing his hands together in a prayer-like formation.
A bright ping sounds as a green healing magic circle manifests between his palms. Master Will effortlessly dodges a volley of incoming flaming knives with enhanced agility.
Opus is left speechless by the boy's unexpected evasion.
Master Will explains that the true essence of his healing magic is life manipulation.
He reveals he heals by appropriately maximizing a target's natural healing power.
He reflects that healing power is not the only thing he can manipulate. The blonde boy yells at him not to get cocky after a single lucky fluke.
A loud pop sounds as Master Will activates a physical enhancement spell, glowing with green energy.
He catches one of the magical knives midair with his bare hand.
A sharp clang sounds as he uses the stolen blade to deflect a barrage of incoming daggers.
A series of light tanks sound as the discarded knives fall to the dry earth.
Master Will notes that his timing was perfect while his opponent watches in frustration.
A quick snap sounds as he catches another flaming blade by the hilt.
Master Will declares he is borrowing the weapon as he prepares to counterattack.
He maintains a confident smirk while clutching the golden magical dagger.
The watching students are baffled, wondering if they just witnessed a healer use offensive magic.
Master Will realizes the onlookers cannot distinguish between offensive magic and his refined healing. Opus curses, desperately claiming that he was merely holding back his true power. A fierce roar sounds as the blonde student summons a massive swarm of flaming knives.
He screams that an offensive mage would never lose to a mere healer.
A series of loud clangs sound as Will maneuvers through the storm of fire.
The black-haired boy deflects the final few projectiles with practiced ease. Opus prepares a final massive spell, insisting that victory is not just about numbers.
A loud shing sounds as he manifests a single giant flaming broadsword.
Will acknowledges the blonde boy's strength and high comprehension of his unique magic.
Opus adds rotation to his massive projectile, turning the flaming sword into a drill.
A massive boom echoes as the spinning fireblade strikes the courtyard with overwhelming force. The blonde student is left stunned as the dust begins to clear. A low grunt sounds as he realizes his massive attack failed to finish the fight. He shouts in desperation while Will contemplates increasing his physical enhancement even further. A sharp shing sounds as Will throws the borrowed knife with incredible speed. The blonde boy watches in disbelief as the fight reaches its climax.
Will suddenly appears behind his opponent, promising to heal him once the match is over.
A sharp whir sounds as Master Will swings his weapon with precision. A bright flash of green light fills the scene as he finishes his move.
A series of heavy thuds sound as massive stone pillars erupt from the earth, pinning the opponent.
The instructor calls for the match to end, ordering both students to stand down immediately.
Master Will stands victoriously over the fallen Opus, who stares up in complete shock. Master Will asks the long-haired instructor if he is now permitted to attend regular classes.
The instructor dismissively tells the boy to do as he pleases. The black-haired boy smiles and offers his thanks.
Master Will walks away from the courtyard, leaving the defeated blonde student on the ground.
A strange, unfamiliar sensation hums through his feet. Master Will reflects on his success, noting his unique style of offensive magic worked better than expected. He credits Professor Veronica's guidance for his ability to use healing magic offensively. The boy stares upward with renewed determination to become an offensive mage. A red academy flag ripples in the sky. Opus tells the instructor that the fight was merely a class accident and should be overlooked. The blonde student insists that he does not want to report every minor occurrence to his father. With a chilling, glowing gaze, the boy asks if the professor understands his implication. The long-haired instructor adjusts his glasses and confirms that he does. The instructor privately fumes, refusing to let a mere healer act with such arrogance. The scene shifts to the academy classroom.
Students are seated and ready for lessons. Master Will is thrilled to finally attend classes and vows to master everything regarding offensive magic.
A sharp creak sounds as the long-haired instructor enters the classroom. He surveys the students with a cold, analytical gaze. The instructor announces the commencement of the magic tool creation class. Master Will feels nostalgic, remembering a similar class from his previous healing academy.
The instructional diagram details the components for creating ice bonds.
The professor explains that he will distribute materials to be assembled while infusing mana. Master Will recalls making potions in his past life and notes the offensive academy focuses on weapons.
He observes that tool creation depends more on materials than the nature of the user's mana.
Master Will opens his supply bag to find an ice golem eye fragment and flame tree branch powder.
He reads from his textbook about mixing the powder with the ice mite.
A sudden, intense light emanates from the magic component. A massive boom echoes through the room as Master Will uses physical enhancement to escape a sudden ice explosion. Jagged ice shards cover the workspace.
Master Will gasps for air, stunned by the unexpected reaction.
The instructor screams at the boy, demanding to know what he is doing.
Will explains the item triggered before he infused mana, but the instructor refuses excuses and deducts points.
Quiet giggles ripple through the classroom as Will looks down.
Opus and his companions mock the boy as he struggles with the sabotage task. A red salamander waits in a cage for the upcoming magical creatures class.
Master Will sits at his desk, eyeing the creature warily. The professor commands students with poor grades to sit in the front row and remain attentive.
Master Will feels uneasy being placed so close to the magical salamander.
A sudden roar sounds as the salamander breathes fire, which Master Will blocks with a hidden pot.
The professor asks why he brought a pot, and the boy admits he thought it might be necessary.
The instructor immediately declares the pot confiscated. Master Will realizes the true nature of his current predicament.
He understands the faculty intends to let him participate without actually allowing him to learn.
The boy wonders what his next course of action should be.
A brown-haired girl sits nearby, appearing deeply troubled by the classroom atmosphere.
The girl with pinkish hair looks toward Master Will with a concerned expression.
The blonde boy taunts Will, claiming his hand slipped after nearly hitting him with fire magic. The instructor demands an answer to a complex problem, and when Will admits he hasn't learned it, he deducts more points. Master Will finds a pile of garbage dumped in front of his dormitory door.
The brown-haired dorm supervisor informs Master Will that he has been banned from dinner for his classroom misbehavior.
Master Will collapses onto his bed with a heavy sigh, reflecting on the overwhelming hostility he faces at the academy.
He stares at the ceiling, acknowledging the mountain of challenges that still lie ahead of him. The boy reaches toward the light, vowing not to let the constant harassment break his spirit as he makes steady progress.
Master Will recalls his recent victory, feeling a surge of pride for finally winning a battle with his own hands.
He clenches his fist with renewed conviction, solidifying his goal to become a true offensive mage.
Master Will sits at his window and decides to spend the evening reviewing his new textbook to catch up on lessons.
A soft huff of air escapes him as he sits in a nearly empty classroom, noticing only one other student present. He checks the wall clock and wonders why the teacher is late despite class time having already begun. The boy looks over at the pinkish-haired girl, suspecting the rest of the class was intentionally moved to hide the change from them.
A sharp clock sounds as Master Will stands up, deciding there is no point in waiting in an empty room.
A startled yip escapes the girl as Master Will approaches her desk to speak.
He asks if she thinks the classroom has changed for the next lesson, and she timidly confirms his suspicion.
Master Will realizes that, like him, she is an outcast, shunned by both the faculty and the other students. The girl suggests they try to get along as fellow loners, though the boy privately notes that her words carry a hidden sting.
Master Will offers a friendly hand and expresses his genuine happiness at making a new friend, which catches the girl off guard.
She hurriedly takes his hand and bows, desperately asking him to take care of her from now on.
The girl introduces herself as Erica Glenn, appearing much more flustered than before.
Erica looks down shyly, her name displayed in an ornate golden frame. She explains that his treatment is expected since everyone at the academy views healers as inherently inferior.
Master Will is struck by the bluntness of the discrimination, realizing how deeply the prejudice against his kind runs.
He laughs awkwardly, noting that despite being an offensive mage now, he still hasn't managed to find any other friends. The boy reflects on how offensive mages who fight on the front lines typically look down on those who provide support. He recalls his past life where he was highly respected as the kingdom's top healer. Master Will notes that because of his past status, he never actually experienced this type of degrading treatment before. He realizes that studying at this academy means he will have to fight against this social discrimination as much as the magic. Erica watches him with a curious and concerned expression. She asks Master Will why he specifically chose to come to Schwartz Academy given his background. The boy prepares to give her a serious answer about his motivations.
Master Will explains that he simply realized his past circumstances were no excuse to give up on his true ambitions.
He turns the question back to Erica, asking why she decided to attend the academy. The girl is surprised by his interest and fumbles over her initial response. Erica reveals that she comes from a small, relatively obscure noble family located in the provinces. She explains that without a male heir, her parents feared for their family line and hoped she could lead if she excelled in offensive magic. Master Will acknowledges that graduating from an academy like Schwartz would certainly solve her family's inheritance problems. Erica admits she has almost no talent for offensive magic and finds the classes and social isolation to be the absolute worst.
A bright shing sounds as she suddenly smiles, celebrating the fact that she finally managed to make a friend.
She cheerfully points out that she feels less anxious now knowing someone even more of a dropout than her is around. Erica offers to help him with any schoolwork he doesn't understand, while Master Will thanks her for her well-meaning but slightly insulting offer. Master Will cryptically warns her that things at the academy might not go exactly as she expects. He stands up and suggests they head out to find the actual classroom where the instruction is taking place. Erica tells him to wait as they walk together toward the large double doors of the hallway. They enter a new room only to find the long-haired instructor waiting for them, stating that class started long ago.
Master Will apologizes for the confusion while Erica stammers in fear as the other students mock their late arrival.
The instructor coldly dismisses their excuses, refusing to listen to why they were late.
A malicious smile spreads across the instructor's face as he prepares to humiliate the boy further.
He points toward a complex magical diagram on the chalkboard and commands Master Will to solve the problem immediately. Erica protests that it is unfair to demand an answer from someone who has barely attended any classes yet.
Master Will stares at the chalkboard with a calm and serious expression, absorbing the difficult task.
The instructor offers a high-stakes deal. He will overlook their tardiness if Will is right, but will deduct points if he fails. Opus laughs mockingly, predicting that Will is going to fail his attempt in no time. Will stands focused at the front of the room while the long-haired instructor watches him closely. Will firmly presses a piece of chalk against the blackboard to begin his work. A rhythmic clatter of chalk sounds as Will writes rapidly, drawing shocked stares from Erica while Opus dismisses it as pointless struggling.
Will continues drafting the complex magical formula across the board with steady precision.
A brilliant glowing blue magic circle suddenly manifests next to the writing on the chalkboard.
Will turns toward the professor and calmly asks if the solution is satisfactory.
The long-haired instructor breaks into a cold sweat, appearing completely stunned by the boy's success.
A sharp gasp escapes the instructor as he processes the perfection of the diagram.
The professor coldly admits the answer is correct and orders Will to sit, leaving Opus screaming in disbelief.
Erica remains in a state of shock, asking Will how he could possibly have solved such a difficult problem. Will returns to his seat with a serene and confident expression.
Whispers ripple through the students as they wonder if Will actually knew what he was doing.
Will explains that the problem was simply an application of a specific example found in their textbook.
A stunned silence follows as Erica stares at him with wide, disbelieving eyes.
A sudden shout of surprise escapes Erica as she realizes he actually studied the advanced textbook on his own.
Will reflects on how the Schwartz Academy textbook is truly worthy of being called the best in the world.
The book is detailed and efficient, systematizing everything from the absolute basics to the most advanced magical applications. The text claims that mastering these lessons will allow a student to easily surpass typical offensive majors. Will notes that while reading it requires great aptitude, his past life knowledge allowed him to understand the concepts easily. He tells Erica that learning about offensive magic was so enjoyable that he stayed up late to read ahead.
Erica is overwhelmed with fear, finding the content far too difficult to learn without a teacher's guidance.
Erica breaks into a frantic cry, begging Will not to leave her behind at the bottom of the class. Her attention is caught by a sudden, gentle pat as Will places a hand on her shoulder. Will reassures her that it is okay and offers to teach her anything she does not understand since they are friends. Erica is moved to tears and expresses her profound gratitude to the boy. Will privately observes that while he did not come to the school for social reasons, having Erica as an ally will be helpful.
The two sit alone in the vast, empty lecture hall as the class period concludes.
Erica prepares for the next session, noting that the basic offensive magic class is coming up next. Will recalls that this specific class was the reason he was previously shut out of all other academy courses. Erica looks concerned as Will admits that despite his academic success, he still cannot use basic offensive magic.
Will clenches his fist with a confident smirk, stating that he has a new idea to solve his problem.
Erica remains flustered and anxious as they transition toward the practical training area.
The students assemble in a large formation in the academy courtyard for their outdoor lesson.
Narration explains the fundamental difference between basic offensive magic and unique magic.
Basic magic is constructed from analyzed formulas that anyone can learn and replicate through study.
Unique magic refers to specific spells and techniques that only a particular individual can perform. The curriculum at Schwartz Academy includes specific classes for both basic formulas and refining unique abilities. Will understands that because unique magic has no set correct answer, he can potentially use his healing magic offensively to pass. The instructor walks along the line of students, his presence casting a shadow over the group. The professor insists that basic offensive magic is a mandatory requirement that cannot be bypassed by other means. He warns that while lectures may have gone well, the practical application will be a far greater challenge. Will stares back at the instructor with a calm, affirmative response. The instructor points toward a straw target, commanding the students to strike it using the basic fireball spell. The professor mocks the simplicity of the task, labeling it the most basic skill expected of any mage. He notes that he observed Will's use of healing magic in his recent mock battle.
The instructor discusses theories regarding how healing magic can temporarily improve a body's physical capabilities.
He bluntly tells Will to leave his class if he cannot produce a fireball, but the boy only responds with a laugh. The instructor is momentarily stunned and confused by Will's sudden display of amusement. A sharp gasp sounds as the instructor is hit with a sudden realization while watching Will's expression. The long-haired instructor is left utterly speechless as a massive fireball erupts from Will's hand, demanding to know how a healer could possibly use such offensive magic. Will privately celebrates the success of his deception, relieved that no one has noticed the clever trick behind his sudden display of power. The black-haired boy maintains a calm, knowing smile as the students in the courtyard murmur with bewilderment at the impossible sight.
Will recalls the secret plan where he had Erica generate a small flame that he then concealed within the hollow of a discarded salamander's tail.
He explains to a worried Erica that he constantly heals the creature's tail to prevent it from burning out, brushing off her concerns about the pain as a minor inconvenience for a healer.
The brown-haired girl is absolutely flabbergasted, questioning if such a reckless feat is truly possible even for someone with his restorative skills.
Erica stares at Will in awe, wondering who he truly is, while a caption reveals his secret identity as the former world's greatest healer.
Will clarifies that he uses healing magic to overcharge the tail's flame sac right before releasing the energy, making it look exactly like a fireball generated on the spot.
A sharp bang echoes through the training area as Will launches the improvised projectile, striking the target with an intense burst of flame. The straw target is engulfed in fire, making a loud crackling sound as it rapidly burns to ash before the shocked spectators. Will casually asks the professor for his thoughts on the performance, while the long-haired man stares back in stunned and growing irritation. The instructor reluctantly admits that the flame was undoubtedly produced through basic offensive magic, his face twisted in frustration. He remains deeply skeptical, wondering to himself if the boy has somehow managed to master offensive magic through sheer talent or some other means. The long-haired instructor gives a curt nod and tells Will he passes, ordering him to stand down while receiving a polite thank you from the boy.
Erica watches with her mouth wide open in total disbelief, while the other students exchange hushed, bewildered whispers about the outcome.
Ulpis, the blonde-haired student, is visibly trembling with rage as he watches Will walk away from the training grounds.
A thunderous shout of "What's going on?" rings out as Opus confronts the long-haired instructor back inside the empty lecture hall. Opus demands an explanation for Will's sudden competence, and when the instructor admits he wants to know as well, the blonde boy snaps that he doesn't care about the reasons.
The blonde-haired student threatens to report the situation to his father and have the entire class disbanded, leaving the instructor panicked and pleading for a moment to explain. Ulpis commands the professor to use any method necessary to remove the boy from his sight immediately, asserting his family's influence. The instructor watches in silence as the arrogant blonde student marches out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The long-haired man bites his thumb in anxiety, reflecting on the high risks of acting against a student but recalling the immense effort it took to become a teacher. He resolves that he must take whatever risks are necessary to protect his hard-earned position from being undermined by the whims of a noble student.
The instructor's resentment boils over at the thought of a mere healer acting so superior to the established academic hierarchy.
With a dark and determined gaze, he decides he has no choice but to take matters into his own hands to prevent the 15-year-old from ruining his life. Later that day, Will meets the long-haired instructor alone in the courtyard, questioning why he was called out to such an isolated spot. The instructor mocks Will's confidence, and when the boy offers a polite thanks, the man sharply retorts that he isn't offering any praise.
The professor points out Will's numerous absences since enrollment and asks with a sinister smirk how he intends to make up for the lost curriculum.
Will looks back with a flat, unimpressed expression, internally noting that it was the instructor's own prejudice that caused those initial absences. The boy explains that he self-studied the material with Erica's assistance and believes there should be no issue with his academic progress. The instructor dismisses the explanation, asserting that only the teacher decides the requirements and that official makeup lessons are mandatory. He declares that the makeup lesson will be a direct mock battle between them, causing Will to question the unusual nature of a battle between teacher and student. The long-haired man offers a patronizing handicap, stating that he will grant a passing grade if Will can land even a single hit on him during the match. He taunts the boy, asking if he plans to run away from such incredibly generous terms as Will remains silent and thoughtful.
The instructor laughs to himself, confident that his advanced magic will overwhelm the boy's attacks before they can ever reach him.
He is determined to beat Will into submission until the boy finally understands the massive gulf in their respective power levels and learns to obey. Will looks him in the eye and firmly agrees to the challenge while the instructor responds with a malicious fanged grin. "Then let's begin right away," the instructor shouts as he slams his hands onto a complex, glowing magic circle on the ground. Will narrows his eyes as he recalls seeing the specific earth manipulation technique once before during a previous encounter at the academy. He recognizes the spell as magic that raises the ground just as the terrain begins to shift violently beneath his feet. A massive, sharp pillar of rock erupts from the earth with incredible speed, nearly catching the boy off guard. The black-haired boy barely manages to dodge the rising stone spike, appearing as a blur as he leaps through the air with enhanced reflexes.
A sharp tsh escapes Will's lips as he narrowly avoids a follow-up attack, his face reflecting the sudden increase in the battle's intensity.
Multiple stone pillars crash together as Will tumbles across the training ground, desperately staying one step ahead of the eruptions. The instructor laughs mockingly from his crouched position, asking Will if all he can do is dodge his relentless earth assault. Will analyzes the magic while moving, noting its high speed and versatility before concluding that this instructor is on a far higher level than Ulpis was.
A sudden sharp crack sounds beneath Will's foot as the ground fractures, signaling another impending strike from directly below him.
He realizes that despite the speed, the attacks are still predictable enough for him to evade as he prepares to counter.
The boy sprints across the battlefield, dodging a forest of stone spikes that continue to burst from the floor in pursuit of him.
A faint popping sound is heard as the instructor refocuses his mana, pressing his palms firmly into the magic circle to continue his assault.
The black-haired boy agilely dodges between two massive stone pillars erupting from the ground.
The long-haired instructor channels earth magic through a glowing circle beneath his feet.
The professor watches the struggle with a malicious purple-eyed smirk behind his glasses. Will launches a high-speed aerial assault while drawing a short blade. The blade sparks uselessly against the instructor's rock-hard head armor. He realizes that his physical strikes are completely ineffective against the magical defense. A magical resonance reinforces the instructor's position as his earth armor glows. The boy narrowly leaps away from a sudden jagged burst of spikes from the floor. The instructor mockingly boasts that his iron wall armor woven from the earth is unbreakable. He dismisses the boy's efforts as a pathetic imitation of offensive magic by a healer. The professor laughs and labels the boy's attempt to become an offensive mage as laughable.
Will explains that his study of healing magic gave him a deep understanding of human anatomy.
He notes that humans subconsciously limit their power to prevent their own bodies from shattering.
The instructor angrily refuses to listen to what he considers to be the boy's escapist lecture.
Removing biological limiters to output more power usually results in a body breaking down.
Will prepares to bypass those limits, surrounded by an aura of intense green magical energy. He declares that he does not care if his arm breaks during the attack.
The boy begins walking forward, explaining that his restorative magic heals his injuries instantly.
Will challenges the professor to see if his armor can withstand the coming blow.
Green magical sparks pulse around the boy's fist as he concentrates his full strength.
A single devastating punch shatters the professor's iron wall defense into pieces.
The instructor sustains a direct hit to the face, shattering his glasses and causing blood to spray. Will stands calmly over his defeated teacher, stating that one shouldn't decide a student's limits.
He recalls how a suggestion from Professor Veronica sparked his idea for offensive healing.
The boy reflects on the foolishness of deciding something is impossible before trying it.
Will clenches his fist with a confident smile, determined to become even stronger.
A sudden sense of danger causes the boy to look back with a startled expression.
Another massive rock pillar crashes into the training ground, nearly striking him.
The bloodied and battered instructor stands back up, his eyes wide and glowing with madness.
A recruitment notice for various translation and editing positions at reset scans is displayed.
Will expertly avoids a second massive stone strike that erupts near him.
He watches as the bloodied professor refuses to accept the outcome of their match.
The man clutches his face in a state of utter rage and psychological collapse. Will calmly reminds the instructor that he was promised a pass for landing a single hit.
The instructor shouts that the match isn't over because there are no witnesses present.
Pure desperation and fury twist the man's bloody features as he prepares another spell.
He screams that he cannot allow it to be known that a healer landed a hit on him.
A tidal wave of jagged stone surges across the floor toward the black-haired boy.
Will explains that releasing his physical limiters applies to more than just his punching power. Green magical energy pulses from the boy's feet as he stomps against the ground.
He vanishes into a blur of incredible supernatural speed, bypassing the incoming earthwave.
The boy reappears instantly right in front of the horrified professor. The instructor freezes in panic, realizing his defensive armor won't manifest in time. A heavy fist connects directly with the professor's cheek with tremendous force.
The impact of the blow causes the instructor's face to distort, as if time itself has slowed.
The man experiences a terrifying sensation where time seems to dilate during the strike.
He mentally begs for the unrelenting and agonizing pressure to stop.
The pain from the offensive healing strike lasts far longer than any normal physical hit.
He realizes the sensation is many times worse than being struck normally.
The instructor collapses under the prolonged agony, unable to even express his suffering.
The instructor's internal plea for the agonizing experience to finally end is displayed in a white void.
A sharp impact sounds as the long-haired man is violently thrown across the courtyard. He crashes onto the stone floor with a heavy thud, his body limp and spent. Will stands calmly while channeling a sphere of green magic, noting that for him, the match was over in an instant. The terrified professor demands an explanation for what happened, and the boy agrees to clarify his methods. Will reveals that he cast sensory enhancement magic on the man at the exact moment his punch landed.
He explains that while he normally uses the spell to boost his own reaction time, he applied it to the professor at an excessive level. An illustration shows that the spell distorted the man's perception, making a single second feel like 1,000 seconds of pain.
Placing a hand on the trembling man's shoulder, Will asks if he now understands the true weight of that single punch.
With a dark and menacing aura, the boy asks the instructor if he has finally passed his makeup lesson. The professor begrudgingly accepts the result as Will leans in to offer one final warning.
He states that while he understands discriminatory attitudes are hard to change, he will not tolerate anyone getting in his way.
Glowing eyes and a terrifying pressure accompany Will's promise to ingrain the sensation of pain into the man's very soul.
The boy clarifies that he simply wants to attend classes peacefully without being harassed by the staff or other students.
He flashes a bright and cheerful smile while asking the professor to promise to grant his simple requests.
The academy's grand spires are bathed in the warm light of a late afternoon sun.
Standing alone in a quiet hallway, the shaken instructor wonders what kind of terrifying person he truly just encountered.
He reflects on his own bias that all healers were fundamentally weak and lacked the will to stand up for themselves.
The man contemplates the traditional hierarchy where offensive mages expect absolute obedience from those in supportive roles.
He recalls Will's overwhelming killing intent and realizes that the boy's strength is completely beyond the norm.
Opus enters the corridor and spots the professor standing in a daze.
The blonde boy casually approaches to ask if the healer's makeup lesson has finally concluded.
When Opus mocks Will's potential expulsion, the instructor suddenly snaps and screams for him to shut up.
The man's voice echoes through the hall as he commands the blonde student to never bother Will again.
Intense rage and hidden fear are visible in the instructor's eyes as he towers over the cowering student.
He warns that it is a fatal mistake to view Will as a simple healer and that he is protecting Opus from a grim fate.
Opus remains arrogant, threatening to involve his father's influence because the teacher isn't following his orders. The instructor dismisses the threat, telling the boy to use his family's power to expel Will himself if he thinks he can. He walks away, predicting that the boy will turn his fangs against anyone who continues to cross him.
The long-haired man leaves Opus standing alone and confused in the middle of the hallway.
A sudden, loud boom sounds as a frustrated fist slams into the wooden paneling of the corridor. Opus curses his situation, venting his anger on the architecture as the professor disappears from sight.
A quick snap echoes through the library as the black-haired boy shuts his heavy textbook.
Will stretches his arms after a long day of intensive self-study in the academy's quiet hall. He observes that the instructor's warning worked, as Opus now only glares from afar without daring to interfere.
Despite the peaceful school life, the boy admits to himself that he is still not satisfied with his current power.
He sits alongside the red-haired girl, both of them focused on their respective academic tasks.
Will reflects on a tragic vision of humanity's total extinction and vows to become much stronger to prevent it.
He acknowledges that while his healing-based physical enhancement is effective, his current combat style is too crude.
The boy realizes that his sensory magic is mostly for intimidation and that he still has a long way to go.
Later that day, Will presents his thoughts to a white-haired woman and asks for her professional opinion.
Professor Veronica stands tall in her white uniform, her hand resting near the hilt of her sword.
She closes her eyes and tells the boy that she has one important thing to say before they continue.
Will stands before her with a nervous expression, sweating as he waits for her reaction.
The professor offers a rare and gentle smile while praising the boy for his hard work. She reveals that he has become a topic among the teachers for managing to keep up with the difficult curriculum.
The professor notes that many of her colleagues aren't pleased, which Will finds entirely predictable.
She admits that she is isolated from the other teachers and rarely has the opportunity to mention her role in his training.
Will smiles and expresses relief that her position isn't being endangered by her association with a healer.
The white-haired woman turns away, telling him not to worry because she is the one who is truly grateful to him.
Professor Veronica notes that healers typically lack the mental drive to weaponize their restorative magic as the boy has done.
A sharp sound rings out as she begins to draw her blade from its scabbard.
The white-haired woman admits she was curious what a fighting healer would actually be like in combat.
Startled by her sudden aggression, Will shouts to ask the professor what she is doing.
Professor Veronica explains that she wants to test the boy's current combat level for herself.
She declares that there are no timeouts on the battlefield as she launches a swift attack.
A loud boom sounds as a massive impact shakes the training courtyard.
A metallic clang rings out while the boy uses his blade to block her sudden strike.
The black-haired boy grinds his teeth as he struggles against the overwhelming pressure of her weapon.
Blinding streaks of blue light fill the air as the professor attacks with relentless speed.
Will grunts in pain as the force of the continuous blows begins to push him back.
He reflects that even with magic to increase his reaction speed, it is barely enough to keep up with her. He notes that her movements are refined to deliver continuous strikes and realizes there is a limit to just forcing physical abilities. Searching for an opening, the boy looks for a single chance to use speed he has not shown yet.
He realizes he must catch her off guard to have any hope of landing ahead.
A sudden thud sounds as Will shatters the ground underfoot to launch himself forward.
The boy flies through the air as a golden blur of supernatural velocity.
Professor Veronica watches his high-speed movement with a calm and analytical expression.
Her blue eyes glow with intensity as she easily tracks the golden streak of light.
A sharp metallic sound rings as she readies her blade to intercept his incoming attack.
Will's high-speed momentum is halted instantly by a precise and powerful strike from the professor.
A clatter sounds as the broken top half of the boy's blade falls onto the stone floor.
The black-haired boy laughs nervously while holding the useless hilt of his shattered weapon.
A soft click sounds as Professor Veronica sheaths her blade back into its scabbard. She expresses surprise that the boy actually forced her to use her magic sword to counter him.
She notes that he maintains a remarkably calm expression even after having his weapon destroyed in an instant. She admits that while she expected a healer who fights like an offensive mage, he possesses top-tier ability among mages his age, and Will thanks her while noting it is still not enough.
The white-haired woman says she likes people with that kind of ambition and asks if physical enhancement alone isn't satisfying.
Will admits that no matter how much he removes his body's limiter, what he can achieve is still limited.
Professor Veronica advises that a sword has uses beyond slashing, suggesting there are other ways to use healing magic, while the boy admits nothing feels right yet.
She points to her temple and says that knowledge is important, but ideas born from experience are what he is truly seeking. She asks if he noticed something specific during their battle just now that might lead to a new idea.
Will agrees while she suggests that mock battles are good, but there is a monster subjugation field training coming up soon.
The boy is startled by the news, recalling the 3 Academy joint monster subjugation training from his past life. He remembers Schwartz Academia, the school dedicated purely to offensive magic. He recalls Heilig Academia, which focused entirely on healing magic.
He thinks of the Silbern Swordsmanship Academy and their role in the joint training.
He recalls that students from each academy form parties for subjugation requests and that he didn't participate when he was at Heilig.
A sepia-toned vision of monsters appears as Will vows to defeat them and change the future of extinction.
The black-haired boy clenches his fist and declares that this will be his first actual monster subjugation mission.
Professor Veronica watches him silently from across the training grounds with her arms crossed.
She explains that to participate, he needs his ability recognized through the Academy's selection exam.
When asked what the exam involves, she explains that candidates are required to fight each other.
She notes that about 100 people apply each year and only the few who show their strength are selected.
Will looks at the crowd of determined students and realizes that this school is entirely focused on fighting.
He muses that the proactive nature of Schwartz is a stark contrast to Heilig, where anyone could join if they wanted.
Sepia memories show a former mentor sleeping under a book, causing Will to wonder what they are doing now.
Professor Veronica warns of a rumored first-year prodigy who is stronger than some teachers, and Will jokes that they are surely better than the homeroom teacher.
A sepia-toned vision of monsters appears as Will vows to defeat them and change the future of extinction.
A top-down view shows the 2 characters as the professor explains that candidates fight each other in the exam.
Will asks Professor Veronica if she has met that specific student yet.
Will jokes that other students don't approach him with questions either, as the white-haired woman sighs.
Professor Veronica promises to help him with his training, making the black-haired boy thank her enthusiastically.
A wide view reveals a massive stone arena with multiple tiers and red banners. A purple flash sounds while Will walks into the arena, noting that the exam day has arrived.
Will stands with a determined expression, thinking about how he has prepared as much as possible.
Will turns around as a voice calls his name, drawing attention to a pair of formal boots.
The black-haired boy greets the Academy headmaster, Alnaram Goldgran, a man with long white hair and a beard.
Sepia-toned memories show the headmaster mentioning how well his granddaughter has been doing since Will saved her.
Alnaram Goldgrant apologizes for not looking after the boys sooner and asks if life at the Academy is tough.
Will smiles broadly and assures the headmaster that while he struggled at first, he is doing fine now.
The boy declares his aim for first place in the exam, causing the headmaster to laugh in a jolly tone.
A sharp scoff sounds as a pair of heavy black boots stomp forward, the newcomer expressing his intense annoyance.
A scarred man's grin is visible as the light-haired prodigy stands silently behind him in the shadows. The man introduces himself as Bode, the field training supervisor, and promises to teach Will a lesson.
Will recognizes the supervisor, realizing with a start that he met this man during his past life.
A sepia memory shows the supervisor, known as Bode the Purple Lightning, channeling violent electrical energy.
Narration explains that Bode was an offensive mage who achieved many heroic feats during the Great War.
Will admits he has few good memories of the man as Bode roughly grabs the boy's collar.
Bode boasts that combat is a world governed by talent while a menacing purple aura flares around him.
Looming over the boy, Bode yells that being a healer means he has absolutely no chance of winning. A sharp sound rings as Will narrows his eyes, staring back at the supervisor with quiet defiance. The headmaster intervenes, saying that the exam will begin soon and the results will speak for themselves.
Bode grins and points out that the student standing behind him is the Academy's prize Sirius.
The headmaster and Will watch silently as the light-haired student walks past the aggressive supervisor.
The prodigy is identified as Sirius Bluenote, a calm young man with striking, glowing blue eyes.
Will watches the student's departure, recognizing him as the rumored prodigy who surpassed the Academy's teachers.
A sharp sound rings while the 2 young mages share an intense and competitive stare-down.
The headmaster reflects on their hot-blooded spirit, finding the tension between them quite favorable.
A metallic thud sounds as the headmaster tops his cane on the floor, signaling everyone to move along.
A loud roar of tears echoes as the candidates march into the center of the massive coliseum.
Will stands in the crowd of applicants, noting the presence of Sirius and a red-haired girl near Kai.
Will is surprised to see Erica, who cries as she explains she will lose her allowance if she doesn't participate.
A blonde boy and several other students glare hatefully at Will from across the arena floor.
Will feels the weight of the hostile gazes and admits to himself that he really doesn't want to be here.
The headmaster stands before the ranks of students, expressing pride in the large number of applicants this year.
He raises a finger to explain that only those still standing after the preliminary round will advance.
Will looks at the surrounding crowd and wonders if a 100-person survival match is too cramped for this space.
A metallic thud sounds as the headmaster strikes the floor with his staff, beginning his grand spell. Blinding blue light erupts as a massive, intricate magic circle consumes the entire floor of the arena. Gasps of shock sound as the ground transforms into a shimmering, starry sky beneath the students' feet.
A sharp chime sounds while the headmaster raises his glowing staff high toward the bright afternoon sun.
A deafening boom sounds as the massive magical array activates, engulfing the entire area in a column of light. A swish sounds as Will suddenly finds himself standing alone in the middle of a dense, sunlit forest.
The black-haired boy looks around in confusion, questioning if he has been sent to the forest behind the academy.
The headmaster's voice echoes through the air, announcing that he has randomly teleported everyone to different locations. Erica shouts for Will in terror as a massive dark wolf with glowing red eyes stalks her inside a cave.
Sirius Blue Note stands alone in a clearing as the headmaster notes that starting positions depend entirely on luck.
Looking up at the sky, Will is shocked that anyone could possess the magic to teleport so many people instantly.
A rustle sounds as birds take flight, with the headmaster's voice prompting the students to begin the challenge.
The black-haired boy says he will go first. A quick dash sounds as the boy lands agilely on a branch.
Will activates presence concealment magic to minimize his life activity and hide his existence. He reacts to ascent. Will watches the ongoing battle. A boy commands his golem while a girl vows to crush it with her hammer.
A blonde student yells blizzard as he launches a frost spell.
Will muses that this is a good chance to see offensive magic and that simply aiming to pass would be a waste. He smiles, noting that he wants to use that technique as well. The students lie defeated.
The brown-haired boy cheers for his victory, gloating about his strong golem.
A soft swish sounds as Will manifests behind his target.
A sharp grab sounds as he seizes the boy's face. Will uses a consciousness severance spell to end the fight instantly. The student loses consciousness.
The black-haired boy sighs, "Phew," after neutralizing his opponent. He notes he is manipulating the flow of life force to make the opponent black out.
Will explains that while he needs a firm grasp and a power difference, the move neutralizes enemies without causing unnecessary injury. He credits the technique to his training with Professor Veronica, just as a rustle sounds nearby.
A sudden "huh" sounds as he turns toward a threat.
Several knives thud into the guard.
Will watches the magic manifest, recognizing the spell as it strikes. The black-haired boy sighs "ha" as he turns to face new challengers.
A blonde boy tells a student named Ulpus that they never harm.
The newcomer claims he doesn't know what the other is talking about and is just earnestly trying to pass.
3 enemies face Will. The blonde boy commands his group to use all their power as Will realizes it is 3 against 1.
He manifests a barrage of blades using knife creation magic.
Another student prepares poison enchantment magic on his weapon. The group utilizes shadow replication magic to increase their firepower. The blonde boy yells that the poison daggers will infect him on contact and not their sheer number makes them impossible to handle.
Enchanted knives fly forward.
Will watches the assault. He realizes that while he could heal the poison, dodging such a massive quantity with physical enhancement alone would be difficult.
Will gathers energy, noting that he will use a specific counter.
A quick shot sounds as the boy dodges the attack.
The knives are deflected. The blonde leader screams in shock, asking what that magic is.
The golem protects Will. Will notes that healing magic usually targets living things, but since this golem uses blood as a medium, it is a magical creature.
Will explains that giving the construct life force allows him to control it, then a heavy boom sounds as he activates pseudo-life bestowal.
The student screams "Ooh-ah" as the construct strikes them. The blonde boy flees in panic, telling his group not to be beaten so easily. Will pursues his enemy. A sharp thud sounds as he captures the leader.
The boy smiles confidently.
The golem attacks another. Will muses that golems cover the close combat weakness of physical enhancement and allow him to observe others' offensive magic. A deafening roar sounds as a massive tornado occurs. Will looks at the tornado in shock, questioning what happened. A massive tornado tears through the forest as Will looks on in shock. The swirling vortex leaves a path of absolute devastation through the trees.
A stone golem lies broken on the cracked earth beside defeated mages.
Will stands among the wreckage, realizing a true monster is nearby.
The black-haired boy watches a lone figure walking away from a trench.
Identifying the prodigy Sirius, Will realizes that beating him won't be easy.
Will wonders if he should test himself as his heart begins racing.
He decides that's enough for now, stopping his advance with focused eyes.
The scene shifts between the mage's intense stares as the others depart.
A bright yellow teleportation circle activates beneath Will's feet on the floor.
Will stands on a hill at sunset, watching Sirius in the distance. Sirius Blue Note turns his glowing blue eyes back toward Will during teleportation. Will smiles slightly, noting that the prodigy seems eager for tomorrow too.
Later that night, Will sits at his desk in his room.
The boy journals his thoughts, wondering how to pass the remaining hours.
Outside in the hallway, a voice asks Opus if he has finished.
2 students note that Will is genuinely strong and even healed them. Opus yells at them to shut up, claiming noble pride makes healing unacceptable.
He bites his thumb in frustration, worrying about his father finding out.
His 2 companions stare at him with expressions of silent frustration. The 2 students walk away, telling Opus to do whatever he wants.
Opus is left alone in the hallway, fuming as his allies leave.
The blonde boy vows to eliminate Will while the protagonist reads nearby.
A recruitment banner provides contact information for the production team.
Opus declares he will eliminate Will without magic while the boy reads. The black-haired boy looks over his shoulder as a sound draws attention. A sudden gata sounds as Will wonders who is visiting Cellate. Will admits to himself that he has a very bad feeling. The boy peeks around his door, his gaze hardening at his visitor.
Opus greets Will with a wide, fake smile, asking about the night.
Will asks what he is scheming, but Opus insists on a talk.
Standing in the doorway, Opus admits he hates healers and wants Will gone. Flashbacks show Will easily countering previous attempts, making Opus frustrated. Opus grins broadly, suggesting he should have just been direct from the start.
His eyes glow with a chilling blue light as he demands Will leave.
Will asks why Opus antagonizes him, but the blonde boy dismisses him.
Opus explains that in the Omen family, healers are cast out as failures. A sepia memory shows a kind man being mocked while he laughs.
Peeking through a door, the young Opus decided healers were pathetic.
Will reflects on the deep-rooted, toxic traditions of the prestigious noble family.
Opus orders Will to leave Schwartz, claiming it isn't a place for healers.
Will asks if the blonde boy really thinks he will just quit.
Opus leans in with a terrifying grin, asking about Will's family.
A sharp piku sounds as Will's eyes widened in silent realization.
Opus reveals he investigated Will's sister, noting their deep bond in the village.
He leaves her safety to Will's imagination if his servants receive instructions.
A dark shadow falls over Will's face as he remains silent.
Opus asks if he has decided, and Will coldly confirms that he has. Opus starts to gloat, but is silenced by Will's hand seizing his throat.
A deafening gah sounds as Will slams the blonde bully onto the floor.
A heavy thud sounding as Will pins Opus to the floor, who pleads with him to stop before his leg breaks.
The black-haired boy states that he has already made up his mind. Opus screams for him to stop as Will exerts more pressure.
A sickening crack sounding as Opus shrieks in absolute agony. A pained gasp sounding as the blonde boy lies on the floor, sweating and breathless from the shock.
Opus warns Will that the Academy and his father won't stay silent about his broken arm.
Will activates a glowing green spell, casually mentioning that he has already healed the injury.
The blonde boy stares in confusion, wondering what is happening.
A sudden snap sounding as Will breaks the limb again, causing Opus to howl in pain.
The black-haired boy calmly prepares to use his healing magic once more.
Will declares he will keep breaking it as Opus desperately begs for mercy. Smiling brightly, Will explains that while he can tolerate attacks on himself, he cannot stay quiet if someone targets his sister.
Will continues his brutal cycle, determined to break the boy's spirit until he swears a genuine oath.
A final blood-curdling scream sounding through the darkness.
Opus trembles in terror, realizing that the healer is actually a demon in human skin, and vowing never to cross him again.
The blonde boy reflects that he is experiencing a suffering worse than death.
The night sky shines over the academy as Will bids Opus a pleasant sleep. Will waves a cheerful goodbye while a battered Opus limps away, being reminded of their promise.
Stretching comfortably in his room, Will admits that the encounter felt somewhat refreshing.
He decides to finally get some sleep to prepare for the events of the following day.
A loud roar sounding from the stadium as the main tournament event begins. High-ranking officials, including a white-haired elder and the scarred man, watch the competition from a balcony.
The announcer details the tournament format as Will prepares to face his next opponent. A nervous whimper sounding as Erica stands before Will, looking anxious about their match.
Erica sheepishly explains her defensive strategy and luck, while Will notes her rare choice to avoid direct confrontation.
The black-haired boy wonders if her strategy can carry her through the rest of the matches. Erica asks if they can go easy on each other, but Will gives her a flat refusal.
A determined shout sounding as Erica resolves to aim for a higher evaluation now. A sharp signal sounding as the referee marks the beginning of the tournament match. Erica readies her magic, announcing her intent to go all out.
A massive roar sounding as Erica unleashes a torrent of fire across the arena toward her opponent. Will observes the orthodox flame magic, noting that its power is low enough for his healing to manage. The boy prepares to brush the attack aside, but suddenly realizes that something about the flames is unusual.
Will's eyes widen as he senses that something is off about the energy.
A vibrant collection of banners marks a momentary pause in the narrative flow.
The black-haired boy remains vigilant as the persistent flames continue to swirl around him.
A sudden burst sounding as Erica launches more fireballs, declaring that she is far from finished.
Will realizes that these flames refuse to be extinguished, identifying it as Erica's unique magical trait.
The boy notes that despite its average power, the magic possesses an abnormal and dangerous persistence.
Recalling a past experiment, Will realizes that the long-lasting nature of her fire is a direct reflection of her own character.
He admits that her walls of flame would be difficult for any opponent to breach.
Erica's persistent nature is highlighted by her own admissions of having very few friends.
A loud cheer sounding as the student audience rallies behind Erica, urging her to defeat the healer.
Looking up at the stadium, Erica begins to wonder if she actually has a chance to win. She gains newfound confidence and suggests that Will should surrender while he still can. Will informs Erica that he is about to launch a counterattack while the girl reacts with tearful shock. A heavy whoosh sounding as Erica throws another fireball, which Will meets with a calm smile.
A sharp sizzle sounding as Will catches the magical projectile directly in his hand.
The boy announces his plan to use her own persistent flames for his counterattack. A shocked gasp sounding as Erica watches Will's fist ignite with her own fire magic.
Will stops his flaming fist just before it strikes a terrified Erica.
A sharp shout sounding as Erica gives up and pleads for the match to end. The brown-haired girl collapses to the floor, panting from the sheer terror of the encounter. A loud announcement sounding as the referee declares Will the winner of the match. Will reflects sadly on how healers still receive no respect, even when they win. A chorus of boos sounding as the crowd insults Erica for forfeiting her match. A frantic apology sounding as Erica clutches her head in distress before her classmates. Will offers a hand to Erica, telling her not to worry because he thinks she fought well.
He heals her hands while reassuring her that she definitely has a chance of passing.
Erica stares at him with wide, sparkling eyes and a sudden blush.
A harsh denial sounding as the scarred Professor Bode looms over them to shut down her hopes.
A pained cry sounding as Erica cowers before the intimidating presence of the supervisor.
Bode smirks while telling the girl she needs to think about her performance.
The large man insults healers, calling them worthless trash as he glares at Will. He berates Erica, stating that giving up against a healer makes her even worse than trash. Glowing red eyes flashing as the professor orders the failed student to leave immediately. A tearful sob sounding as Erica runs away from the arena in shame.
Will questions the supervisor on whether that way of speaking to students is truly appropriate.
A booming laugh sounding as Bode claims he is just showing the students some tough love.
The supervisor begins to walk away from the center of the ring.
He looks back with a grin, predicting that only one person will pass the exam this year. A soft murmur sounding as the silver-haired Sirius appears right behind Will.
The black-haired boy is startled by how suddenly Sirius managed to approach him.
Sirius remains calm and tells Will that he needs to speak up.
Will asks if the other boy shares the same harsh opinions as Professor Bode.
Sirius admits that he agrees with the professor because strength is everything.
A tired sigh sounding as Will accepts the other boy's straightforward perspective. Sirius adds that he doesn't consider Will to be weak either. He stares intently at Will while stating that he would rather be proven right.
Will looks on with quiet, focused determination.
Will recalls that Sirius was known in his past life as a terrifyingly strong offensive mage.
Sirius is declared the winner of his own match after effortlessly returning all attacks to nothing. A massive roar sounding from the stadium as the final match between Will and Sirius begins. Will realizes that he must win this fight if he ever hopes to be recognized. He declares his intent to win while Sirius acknowledges him with a serious look.
A loud signal sounding as the instructor starts the final selection exam.
A light whirl sounding as wind begins to circle Sirius's legs. A deafening howl sounding as a massive torrent of wind sweeps across the arena floor.
Will manages to dodge the brunt of the shockwave as dust kicks up around them.
Sirius uses his magic to maneuver through the air with incredible speed and grace. The silver-haired boy maintains a cold and focused expression during the exchange.
A sudden burst sounding as a giant cyclone erupts to trap Will in the center.
A pained grunt sounding as the pressure of the wind forces Will into the ground. Will admits that the wind is so intense he cannot even get close to his opponent.
The two rivals lock eyes in a tense, silent standoff. A vibrant collection of banners marks a momentary pause in the narrative flow.
Their gaze intensifies as they prepare for the next exchange of blows.
Sirius reflects that Will's speed is making him a very troublesome opponent.
Sirius charges a glowing sphere of blue energy in his hand for a direct attack.
A thunderous boom sounding as Sirius unleashes a massive pillar of wind and light.
A powerful gale buffets the black-haired boy as he notes the wide reach of the magical wind. Realizing he might be ejected from the arena, the boy manifests a glowing green barrier for protection.
He lands firmly on the floor, bracing himself against the overwhelming pressure of the storm.
A sudden, sharp crack sounds as a plant erupts from the ground, flourishing into a thick grove.
Erica watches from the stands with a shocked expression, questioning if such growth is also a form of healing magic. Looking at the massive tree standing in the arena, she marvels at how much stronger Will has become.
The black-haired boy maintains a determined smile amidst the swirling leaves.
He reflects on his training, mentally addressing Professor Veronica regarding his progress.
A single leaf drifts through the clear sky as the scene shifts to a memory of his mentor. Professor Veronica looks up in surprise as a leaf lands in her long white hair.
In the past, Will explains that he has learned to manipulate plants by infusing them with concentrated life energy. He enthusiastically describes how library research on offensive magic inspired him to develop these versatile plant-based tactics. The boy's face suddenly pales as the strain of the spell takes a physical toll.
A soft thud sounds as the white-haired professor catches the boy when he begins to collapse.
She checks on his well-being while he admits to feeling completely drained of his magical reserves. Will laughs weakly, noting that the books failed to mention how exhausting the technique truly was. The professor notes her suspicions were correct, prompting the boy to ask for her insight.
She explains that healing is more taxing than destruction, making his method of offensive healing highly inefficient with mana.
The boy realizes that he must be extremely tactical and selective about when to deploy this taxing magic.
Returning to the duel, he recognizes that his lack of natural offensive talent makes this the perfect time for such a move.
Sirius Blue Note raises his arm, preparing to launch a new sequence of magical strikes.
Will dodges a series of rapid wind blades, acknowledging the sheer variety of his opponent's arsenal.
The prodigy's magic is described as a violent tornado that swallows all in its path. His wind magic forms an absolute defense, striking down anything that tries to approach the center of the storm.
Observing the flawless technique, the black-haired boy admits his rival's magic is truly without any openings.
He clenches his fist with renewed resolve, deciding to push himself further with his unique abilities.
A quick whoosh sounds as the boy charges forward, staying low to avoid the cutting winds.
Sirius stands within a massive azure vortex, declaring that no effort will ever allow the boy to reach him.
A confident smirk plays across the protagonist's face just as the situation shifts.
A sudden wet squelch sounds as Sirius is struck in the shoulder by an unexpected attack from behind.
The silver-haired boy winces in pain, baffled as a plant stalk retracts back into the arena floor.
Will points out that a tornado offers no protection from underground roots that can grow anywhere.
Sirius grits his teeth, clutching his bleeding wound while struggling to process the trick.
The boy asks his rival why he is so dedicated to following a teacher like Professor Bode.
In the stands, the muscular Professor Bode watches silently as the narration notes the odd pairing between student and master.
Will questions why someone from such a prestigious lineage would need to look elsewhere for instruction.
Sirius reveals the cold truth of his upbringing, where magical strength is the only currency.
He describes a cutthroat family where everyone is an enemy and his own father refuses to teach him.
Looking across the ruined battlefield, the boy finally understands the desperation driving the silver-haired prodigy.
Sirius dismisses the conversation, fueled by pain as he prepares an even more devastating spell.
The arena trembles as the crowd watches the manifestation of an immense blue aura. A colossal, glowing blue dragon of wind roars behind Sirius as he prepares to end the duel. The magical beast lunges forward with a deafening roar, tearing through the arena toward Will.
The boy reflects on his past arrogance, thinking that offensive mages had it easy compared to him.
He recalls feeling that he worked harder than everyone else to compensate for his lack of time. In a moment of clarity, he accepts that his initial assessment was entirely correct. Buffeted by the blue gale, the black-haired boy stands his ground with an unshakable focus.
He declares his genuine desire to win this match as he faces the oncoming dragon.
Sirius reacts with confusion as the boy clarifies he was simply talking to himself. A heavy boom sounds as Will activates an intricate magic circle, calling forth his ultimate seed. Thick green vines erupt from the ground as a sudden gururu sounds through the air.
A massive glowing green magic circle activates, manifesting a colossal tree labeled Yggdrasil.
Will reflects that making a massive plant grow this rapidly drains far more magic power than ordinary growth.
He realizes that the more magic he pours in, the more it keeps growing while a surge of energy befets the arena.
Swirling blue energy trails across the arena floor as the massive tree continues its rapid expansion.
Sirius stands in silence, his eyes closed as blood drips from a dark wound on his shoulder.
A sudden saw sounds as the silver-haired boy watches the massive tree tower over the arena stands.
A single leaf drifts past Sirius's face as he watches the colossal tree with one glowing blue eye.
A loud gururu sounds as the massive tree roots continue to twist and expand, leaving Sirius baffled.
Will explains that the plant has exceptionally high vitality while a loud Gaza sounds from the movement.
Sirius's eye widens in shock as he realizes his wind dragon defense won't be fast enough to stop the tree. A thunderous doon sounds as the massive roots smash through the arena floor, sending debris flying. The earth-shattering force continues to tear through the arena as the roots dominate the battlefield.
Sirius groans as he is pinned to the floor by the weight of a massive tree branch.
A sudden saw sounds as the black-haired boy stands over his fallen rival holding a sharp dagger.
Will holds the blade steady, forcing Sirius to admit that he has lost the match. The black-haired boy stands in a defensive posture, sweating as he realizes the intensity of his victory.
A murmur ripples through the crowd as students realize the healer actually beat a prodigy like Sirius.
Sirius looks down in silent frustration, his face obscured by his long silver hair. Will notes the match was close, but Sirius coldly dismisses his own performance as not good enough.
The black-haired boy looks confused, asking his rival what he means by claiming it wasn't a good fight. A dark, crackling energy fills a thought bubble as a voice admits to feeling deeply disappointed. A sudden goon sounds as a violent blast of purple energy erupts from the arena floor.
A sharp shoo sounds as the massive tree branch begins to smoke and wither above the fallen Sirius.
A loud gya sounds as Professor Bode stands over his defeated student with an intense, looming presence.
A sharp piku sounds as the scarred professor roughly seizes the silver-haired boy by his long hair.
Professor Bode declares that Sirius failed and that he will be personally retraining him from now on.
The audience watches in stunned horror, whispering that the professor's actions are way too harsh.
Professor Bode shouts at the audience that he won't accept a healer taking first place over his student. A heavy silence falls over the stands as the students sit in uncomfortable, fearful stillness.
Will watches with concern, asking if the professor is taking things too far as Bode carries Sirius away.
The boy insists the match was close, but the professor tells him to shut up as a dark aura flares. A sudden za sounds as Professor Bode mocks the idea of a good fight or potential for the future.
A sharp bash sounds as the professor asserts that on the battlefield, raw ability is the only thing that matters.
He declares that losers are treated like trash and simply die, while he carries the unconscious Sirius.
Will watches the professor's back, reflecting on the cruelty of seeing someone discard their own student. The black-haired boy shouts that he still managed to beat Sirius despite his status as a healer.
Professor Bode turns his head, his face shrouded in shadow with glowing white eyes. Will argues that healers support everyone and that roles are divided for a specific purpose.
He desperately shouts that humanity will perish if they don't learn to work together.
Professor Bode remains silent for a long moment, looking down at his own student's battered form.
A sudden sue sounds as the scarred man admits that his own student stayed on the front lines to buy time.
He clenches his gloved hand, noting that he was supposed to protect his people while he fled.
Bode explains that those mages were wiped out pathetically by small fry monsters while they were fleeing.
He screams in frustration, asking why Sirius should have to die just because he wasn't strong enough. A single golden eye burns through the darkness as the professor refers to the fallen as trash.
Professor Bode roars in agony, his face contorted as he demands to know why Sirius must die.
Will stands in a dark void as voices of the past remind him that the weak can't do anything in the end.
A system notification warns that an era when monsters become more vicious is coming soon.
Dark visions of demonic creatures in burning cities fill the void, warning that the strong cannot remain selfish.
A sudden, sharp gah sounds as the boy clenches his fist in determination.
Will declares that people like him who have nothing must become strong, asking Professor Bode if he will acknowledge him if he wins. A sudden knee sounds as the scarred professor flashes a wide, menacing grin. Professor Bode orders the other teacher to take the weaklings and leave once the match is officially declared.
The brown-haired teacher asks if the professor is serious about fighting, while Bode asserts that he makes the rules here.
A sharp cheera sounds as the teacher carries the unconscious Sirius away while the boy watches with a clenched fist.
A sudden cuckoo sounds as the protagonist stares forward with an intense, unyielding focus.
The teacher sighs as he carries Sirius toward the arena exit, leaving the two combatants alone.
The announcer declares a special match between Bode and Will as the two face off across the sand.
The professor manifests a violent aura of purple lightning, repeating his claim that the boy stands no chance.
Observing his opponent, Will notes that his magic reserves are low while he faces his strongest opponent yet.
A soft poo sounds as the boy prepares a green magical light, realizing a normal fight won't result in victory.
A sudden boom sounds as Professor Bode lunges forward, shouting that the boy is too slow to react.
A sharp piku sounds as the protagonist's eyes widen at the incredible speed of the lightning-clad professor.
A thunderous doom sounds as a massive pillar of purple lightning erupts where the boy was standing.
A sharp sounds as Bode raises 3 fingers, claiming there are 3 reasons why his victory is absolute.
He lists his advantages as distance, speed to prevent action, and the power to finish any fight in a single strike.
The professor mocks the boy, asking if he can even hear him anymore as smoke clears from the impact zone.
A sharp exclamation point sounds as Bode's eye widens in surprise when he spots a figure still moving in the dust.
Will is seen kneeling on the ground, bleeding from a leg wound but still maintaining his fighting stance.
The black-haired boy admits that he already knew the professor possessed unique lightning magic. He reasons that he must avoid direct hits to his vital organs because healing magic cannot save a destroyed brain or heart.
Standing back up, the boy holds a dagger steady while sweating from the exertion of surviving the blast.
A diagram reveals how the boy used his dagger and movements to deflect the purple lightning into the ground. Will prepares for a counterattack while the professor merely grunts in response to his survival.
Professor Bode admits the boy survived through effort but remains confident in his own superiority.
A sharp piku sounds as the boy activates physical enhancement magic, causing green energy to swirl around his legs.
The boy's eyes widen as he suddenly collapses, realizing he can no longer put any power into his limbs.
Bode explains that his purple lightning has an absolute rule. Anyone it touches becomes completely paralyzed.
A sudden bachi sounds as the boy struggles to move while the professor charges a new surge of electrical energy.
A thunderous dune sounds as a second, even more powerful lightning strike crashes down on the boy's position.
In the stands, a red-haired girl watches in horror as the boy is engulfed by the violent purple storm.
Professor Bode stands triumphantly, declaring that his magic has no openings and that his arrogant attitude is justified.
A sudden gu sounds as the boy remains upright despite the heavy damage, his clothes scorched by the lightning.
Gritting his teeth in agony, the boy's face is a mask of pain as he refuses to stay down.
A sharp bash sounds as the boy slams his hand onto the arena floor, declaring this is his last magic and last seed.
A loud gururu sounds as a massive, twisted plant stalk erupts from the ground directly in front of the boy.
He commands the water treasure tree to grow, manifesting a colossal wooden wall that towers over the battlefield.
Will explains that this specific tree stores massive amounts of water, which will cause the lightning to disperse.
A sudden bachi sounds as the professor gather more lightning, asking, "So what?" with an unimpressed expression.
A thunderous dune sounds as the purple lightning strikes the tree, but the boy's shield holds firm.
The audience watches as a massive bolt of electricity arcs through the air, striking the base of the arena.
A sharp shoo sounds as the tree begins to smoke and wither, leaving the boy protected behind its charred remains. Bode walks forward through the steam, mocking the boy for using a pathetic defensive technique as a last resort.
A soft pokotsu sounds as the professor suddenly stops, looking confused as something small appears near the tree roots.
A series of pokotsu sounds echo as bright red mushrooms rapidly begin to sprout all over the arena floor. Professor Bode shouts in confusion, demanding to know what is happening as the mushrooms continue their explosive growth.
A sharp su sounds as the boy admits he is surprised the plan worked so well, a small smirk forming on his face.
Will explains that certain mushrooms have spores that grow rapidly after a lightning strike, using the professor's own power against him.
Will explains that the red foam blower mushroom has a very specific, dangerous characteristic.
Professor Bode stands in stunned silence as he looks down at the strange red mushrooms.
A drop of sweat rolls down the scarred professor's face as he realizes something is wrong.
The man cries out in shock, realizing that his entire body has suddenly gone numb.
Will clenches his fist as a vibrant green aura begins to swirl with intense power.
A sudden shoo sounds as the black-haired boy lunges forward with an aura-infused strike.
A sharp sha sounds as Professor Bode grits his teeth, refusing to let his guard down.
A thunderous go 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 sounds as a violent purple energy explosion throws the bleeding boy backward.
A loud dune sounds as Will collapses, while Bode mocks his attempt at close combat.
The professor laughs, claiming he can overcome paralysis by moving at accelerated speeds with lightning.
Will trembles on the ground, sweating as he realizes the massive gap in their power.
A sudden ba sounds as Bode charges a final purple blast to end the match.
A white-haired woman in a sharp white uniform suddenly intercepts the strike with her sword.
She questions if the professor is taking his frustration out on a student too far.
Professor Veronica looks back with a cold, piercing gaze as her long white hair flows.
A weary ha sounds as the scarred man lets out a long, frustrated breath.
Bode angrily tells Veronica not to interfere since she is only a new hire here.
Will watches from the floor in total shock, recognizing the woman as Professor Veronica.
Veronica argues that further fighting is pointless, while Bode insists the boy can still heal.
She counters that healing requires stamina, which the boy has completely exhausted during the fight. A sudden bachi sounds as both professors flare their magical auras, preparing for a confrontation.
A sharp ba sounds as the two mages dash toward each other at incredible speeds.
A series of beery sounds echo as a strange purple ripple halts their violent collision.
A sudden fua sounds as an elderly man with long white hair appears between them.
The headmaster declares that having the two of them fight here is truly pointless.
A soft suto sounds as the elder stands tall with a glowing circular magical crest.
The headmaster looks over his shoulder and firmly commands Bode to stop his actions.
A sharp chi sounds as the scarred professor clicks his tongue and looks away. A loud ga sounds as Bode rubs the back of his head and finally relents.
The headmaster turns to the white-haired woman and apologizes for the poor explanation.
A sharp ahem sounds as the elder strokes his long white beard with dignity. He officially announces the conclusion of the main event for the field training selection. The headmaster stands in the center of the arena and orders everyone to exit promptly. A low za sounds as the audience begins to file out of the massive coliseum.
A soft poa sounds as Will tries to use a small green light to heal.
The boy grits his teeth, lamenting that he is out of magic and cannot heal.
Professor Veronica reaches down and lifts the injured boy into a firm bridal carry.
A sudden doki sounds as Will looks up in total surprise at the professor.
She looks down at him kindly, telling him he did well and should rest now.
The black-haired boy stares at her in silence, his face flushed with a soft glow.
Closing his eyes, Will softly admits that he understands and accepts her kind words. The white-haired woman walks toward the arena exit while carrying the exhausted boy.
Will reflects on the overwhelming tactical refinement and power of a first-class offensive mage.
He thinks about the difference in their levels and the raw power they possess. The boy realizes that humanity perished despite having such strong protectors fueling his resolve.
A sharp gotcha sounds as Will cautiously opens the door to a private room.
The white-haired headmaster turns around in his library and welcomes the boy's arrival.
Will explains that his wounds will heal instantly once his magical power returns to him.
The elder confirms that Will can participate in field training as the main event winner. He adds that Sirius and Erica also passed, leaving the red-haired girl in shock.
In the library, Will questions the professor's claim that everyone failed, but the white-haired headmaster explains it is a recurring annual event. The black-haired boy is shocked to hear it happens every year, while the elder clarifies that Bode uses the tactic to stir up a sense of crisis and reveal true potential before passing students. The headmaster notes that the professor's harshness is his way of being a proper teacher given the dangers of field training, as a silhouette of the lightning-clad man looms. Looking at the gathered students from behind, a small, sweating version of Will thinks the professor's dramatic teaching style is way too awkward.
Will reflects on his past life when Bode was a hero fighting for humanity on the front lines, acknowledging that while he dislikes the man's actions, the warrior possesses his own pride.
The elderly headmaster informs Will that he will be forming a party with students from other academies to serve as an offensive mage.
The boy stares ahead as he is told they will be accepting actual monster subjugation requests, repeating the task to himself with a look of serious contemplation. A menacing aura surrounds several dark monsters, including horned beasts and sharp-toothed creatures, highlighting the dangers ahead.
Violent purple energy swirls around a group of monstrous figures, emphasizing the ferocity of the enemies mages must face. The scene shifts to peaceful sheep-like and lizard-like creatures as a note explains that monsters originally meant any magical creature and aren't always hostile. A massive horned bear roars with glowing red eyes as two human soldiers brace themselves with spears and swords in the dark woods.
In a bright, sunlit field, a young man peacefully pets a large horned bull, illustrating that understanding their ecology can turn monsters into useful neighbors.
A giant red moon hangs in the dark sky, casting a light that turns monsters into vicious, power-hungry killers. Under the influence of the crimson moon, different species of monsters band together to hunt, showing a goblin riding atop a horned bear. A bloody scene unfolds as the massive claw of a monster pins a fallen human to the ground, reflecting the mindless slaughter that begins.
A sharp silhouette of a jagged, smiling demonic figure appears as the text announces that the Demon King descends 2 years after the Red Moon's influence.
Humanity rapidly loses ground as a village is consumed by flames and smoke, leaving bodies scattered across the blood-stained dirt paths. On the burning battlefield, arrows and spears strike down mages and knights alike, proving that even the strongest protectors are being picked off.
Once the battle lines collapse, healers who stayed behind are cornered by massive monsters and slaughtered amidst the wreckage of burning buildings.
A somber white box reveals the grim reality that by the time the narrator died, almost no fighting force remained to protect humanity.
Smoke billows around a large cathedral under a fiery orange sky, signaling that humanity was only months away from total extinction.
A firm, determined fist clenches as Will vows that he will never let that tragic history repeat itself in this life.
Standing with the shadow of his past self behind him, the boy resolves to become stronger than anyone he knew to counter the coming monster invasion.
Back in the present, Will tells the headmaster that he intends to figure out the cause of the red moon that drives the monsters to such violence.
The white-haired headmaster smiles warmly at the boy, impressed by the incredible determination he sees in his eyes. The elder claims that at this rate the boy will be just fine, leading Will to wonder if the teachers are truly that worried about the field training.
A soft pawn sounds as the headmaster places a kind hand on Will's shoulder, stating he had something specific he wanted to tell him.
The black-haired boy looks up with wide, curious eyes, waiting in silence for the elder to continue his thought. Outside the academy, Will stands with the red-haired Erica and the white-haired Veronica as two horse-drawn carriages wait in the courtyard.
The group prepares to depart, with Professor Veronica standing tall with her sword while the students wait near the large carriage.
Will's attention is caught by someone approaching, causing him to turn his head with a look of recognition.
Professor Bode walks forward with his usual stern expression, followed closely by the long-haired Sirius.
Will mentions he heard the professor's strict guidance comes from caring about his students, prompting a shocked and angry "huh?" from the scarred man.
Bode looms over the boy, calling him weakling trash and warning him not to get cocky, while Will nervously agrees and thinks the man's attitude is unchanged.
Letting out a frustrated huff, the professor walks away while shouting for the boy to work hard on his field training.
Walking toward the other carriage, Bode's back is turned as he gruffly adds that he thanks Will for treating Sirius.
Will and Sirius stand together as the white-haired boy looks over and softly adds that the thanks come from him as well.
Will notes that Sirius is still very quiet as they prepare for their separate journeys.
Clenching his fist, Sirius thanks the boy and says he can now give his all to training so he can become even stronger.
A close-up of the white-haired boy's focused eye reveals his dedication to the specific teachings he received from Professor Bode.
Sirius explains the lesson he learned. As long as you survive and can eventually get revenge, it isn't a loss.
A sharp Sue sounds as Will offers a fist bump, calling it good teaching and encouraging Sirius to get much stronger.
A small, genuine smile forms on the white-haired boy's face as he accepts the gesture of camaraderie.
A firm gushu sounds as the two students knock their fists together in a silent pact of mutual growth.
The boys begin to walk away from each other, heading toward their respective carriages to begin their training.
Professor Bode boards his carriage while Sirius waits by the door, noting that their growth will make the future fight against monsters much better.
Will looks back at Erica and Professor Veronica, who are waiting for him by their own carriage.
With a bright, energetic smile, the black-haired boy shouts that he is coming now as he runs toward his team.
A series of gata gata sounds echo as the carriage rattles down a forest road, with the driver announcing that Dunkel Forest is just ahead.
Inside the carriage, Professor Veronica sits across from Will and Erica, confirming that their mission is a goblin subjugation request in the forest.
Professor Veronica explains that the party consists of 3 students from different academies and 1 supporting teacher, prompting Erica to ask if the members are already decided.
The white-haired professor confirms that Erica is in Will's party, though the girl worries that the woman is a bit scary.
Will hears someone approaching and looks toward the source of the noise.
Veronica leads the students toward the door, noting that the participant from Silburn has already arrived.
The black-haired boy peeks out the door to see who is waiting for them.
A joyful voice suddenly shouts, "Master Will," as flower petals drift through the air.
A blonde girl lunges forward and catches Will in a tight hug, exclaiming she has waited so long for this day. She beams with pure, blushing happiness while refusing to let go of him.
Erica screams about the shameful display while Veronica watches with a confused expression, and both Will and the girl are startled by the reaction.
A flustered Will holds his hands up and apologetically admits he has no idea who the girl is.
The blonde girl looks surprised and steps back, realizing he doesn't recognize her. A soft "sa" sounds as she reaches up to adjust her long blonde hair. She formally introduces herself as Marie Goldgrant, the granddaughter of the Schwartz Academia headmaster. Will suddenly recalls treating a sickly, bedridden girl at the elders' home, realizing this is her.
Marie continues her introduction, beaming as she reveals her identity to the group.
The boy is stunned as the memory of the pale, ill girl flashes through his mind.
Will asks how she has been feeling, and Marie joyfully declares she is in perfect health now. She apologizes for not thanking him sooner, but Will notes that her grandfather already rewarded him by recommending him to the academy.
Marie insists that she still wanted to find a way to repay the favor herself. She explains that since she lacked magic talent, she joined Silburn and trained in swordsmanship until she could shatter massive pillars.
She reveals she placed first in her academy selection exam, much to Will's absolute shock.
Marie giggles and admits that she actually possessed a natural talent for the sword. A cold sweat forms on Will's face as he wonders if she is some kind of monster for improving so quickly. A sharp "sue" sounds as the two reach out and firmly clasp hands. Marie says that is why they are in the same party, and Will agrees they should do their best together. A rhythmic gata gata sounds as a carriage approaches, and Marie realizes what her grandfather meant by his encouragement. A quick "ta" sounds as she pulls Will by the hand to greet the arrives from Heilig. Watching them run off, Veronica suggests they should also try to liven up their own group's atmosphere. Marie looks around the large carriage, wondering where the rest of their party members have gone.
She calls out for Master Wren and Master Turf to show themselves.
Will hears the name Wren and repeats it with a look of growing suspicion.
A man with messy purple hair tells her not to rush as he begins to step out of the carriage.
He introduces himself as Ren, the designated leader and teacher for their specific group.
A formal title box identifies him as Ren Kaitos, a teacher from Heilig Academia.
Will stares in shock, his mind echoing the word mentor as he looks at the man.
The boy reflects on his past life, remembering Ren as his healing magic mentor and the greatest healer he ever knew. Will is overwhelmed with joy to be in the same party, leaving both Marie and Ren looking very confused.
A small, bespectacled boy with brown hair complains from the shadows of the carriage that he cannot get down.
Marie introduces herself as the student from Silburn to the two newcomers.
The boy, Turf, shyly adjusts his glasses and says it is nice to meet them.
A sudden gishu sounds as Turf realizes Will and Marie are still holding hands, causing him to vibrate with jealous shock.
Turf looks at Will with a suspicious glare and asks for his name and background.
Will introduces himself as an offensive mage from Schwartz, which seems to annoy the smaller boy even more.
A lazy Sue sounds as Ren stretches his arms and tells everyone to just do whatever they want while he watches.
Marie is confused by the overly casual approach, but Will recognizes it as his mentor's typical behavior.
A light Toto sounds as the purple-haired man starts to walk away with his hands behind his head.
Will follows him and asks if he can call him mentor, which Ren finds completely baffling.
The boy explains he knows healing magic but lacks a teacher, so he hopes to learn directly from the expert.
Ren is stunned by the rare idea of an offensive mage who can also perform healing magic. The teacher realizes that their group assignment was likely a very intentional choice by the school.
Will asks his purple-haired mentor if the informal title is acceptable, and Ren casually dismisses his concern while telling the boy to use whatever name he likes.
Marie Goldgrant excitedly decides to call the purple-haired man master teacher as well, while the bespectacled turf runs behind her trying to get her attention. Watching the students interact from a distance, Professor Veronica and Erica note how quickly the group has become friendly and resolve not to fall behind.
A rustic cabin in a sunlit clearing stands ready to serve as the group's base.
Following the plan to utilize the cabin as their base, the three set out toward the deeper goblin territory.
Will reflects on how healers typically stayed back at the base during actual combat in his past life, explaining why he never participated in such missions. Marie is surprised to see that their purple-haired mentor is heading to the front lines despite being a healer.
Ren explains his role as a supervisor and his relaxed approach to training, stating he prefers not to be stuffy.
Will agrees to fight without holding back as a group of muscular goblins watches the team from the shadows.
Will seeks clarification on the meaning of not holding back as he looks at Marie, who is already prepared for a fight.
A clatter sounds as Marie prepares for battle, excitedly confirming they will give their all as several goblins approach the group with wicked grins.
A cheerful Marie prepares to unleash her power.
Her hand grips her massive weapon.
Marie charges forward as a quick da sounds, vowing to swing her sword with all her might as she prepares a powerful attack. A sharp gatsu sounds as Marie cleaves through multiple goblins in a single devastating sweep.
A light ta sounds as Marie charges forward with incredible speed.
Marie exhales a satisfied sigh after her assault.
Will stares in absolute shock as the blonde girl stands triumphantly atop a massive pile of defeated goblins.
Marie smiles warmly, her eyes full of life.
Marie joyfully calls out to Will, celebrating her newfound strength.
She continues her relentless assault on the goblins. Will notes the tremendous power behind Marie's swordsmanship.
Will wonders if Marie is strong enough to handle everything alone, but she seems surprised by the number of enemies.
Goblins continue to surround the blonde girl.
Ren notes that while Marie is impressive, she leaves far too many openings for her enemies to exploit.
The teacher explains that Marie is excellent at charging but becomes vulnerable when surrounded by multiple foes.
Ren commands Will to provide cover for Marie, and the boy immediately accepts the order.
Will realizes he is finally going to fight monsters.
A terrifying ah sounds as a snarling, purple-skinned goblin lunges forward with a roar.
Will recalls the formidable strength of the monsters from his past.
A hand suddenly rests on Will's shoulder.
A soft pon sounds as Ren tells the boy to relax while giving him a confident, sharp-toothed smile.
Will looks up with a startled expression.
Will notes that his mentor is exactly as he remembers him from his past life.
A quiet Su sounds as a glowing green magic circle forms while the boy prepares a spell.
A powerful pow sounds as Will activates a physical enhancement spell while Ren watches his progress from behind.
A heavy do sounds as Will's foot stomps firmly onto the grass.
A sudden pa sounds as Will moves with blinding speed, slashing through a group of goblins in an instant.
The two students stand back to back during the bell.
Marie declares she is counting on Will's support, and he quickly confirms his readiness.
Marie realizes the true effectiveness of fighting alongside a healer who uses magic.
Ren watches the coordinated effort of his students and notes that their performance is quite good.
Will stands among the fallen goblins, satisfied that his magical abilities are effective against monsters.
Will admires the incredible sharpness of the knife given to him by Professor Veronica, noting its superiority over a previous weapon while the previous owner shouts in annoyance.
Marie is overjoyed by Will's performance, praising his explosive power and brilliant skill.
Two soft pawns sounds echo as Ren places his hands on both students' shoulders and declares that the first day of training is finished.
Ren casually leads the group back to their base.
Marie and Will both notice they feel strangely light, attributing the sensation to their mentor's influence.
Will reflects on the different indicators used to measure healing magic ability, such as the severity of injuries or types of diseases cured.
Will notes that his mentor's true strength is the incredible speed of his recovery magic, which works so casually that people don't even realize it was used.
Will asks his purple-haired mentor about his subtle healing technique, noting that non-healers rarely grasp its complexity.
Ren explains he avoids flashy magic because effective healing is the only thing that truly matters.
Will reflects on his teacher's greatness.
Narration confirms Ren Kaitos as the world's greatest healer as he walks away.
Night falls over the quiet cabin. Over dinner, the purple-haired man gives his students a passing grade for their first day.
Turf mentions he felt useless today since no one required medical attention during the mission.
The students enjoy their one meal. Ren reveals Turf prepared a special recovery soup enhanced by his own secret spice blend.
The teacher explains the flavor comes from his special spice while Turf looks on with a smile.
Marie praises the teacher's combat knowledge, wondering how a healer became so experienced on the front lines. Ren explains that constant exposure to frontline injuries naturally builds a wealth of practical combat knowledge. Turf notes that the teacher's frequent travels to various sites are why he rarely leads standard classes.
Marie asks if his travels are dangerous, but the purple-haired man jokingly claims he excels at running away.
Will continues eating dinner in silence.
Will realizes that despite his words, his mentor never retreats when people's lives are on the line.
Will's reflection ripples in the soup. A memory of Ren healing wounded soldiers amidst a battlefield's fire and smoke flashes through Will's mind. Will reflects on the changing timeline while anticipating a major upcoming incident.
Ren stirs soup with a smile.
A loud cuckoo sounds as Will drinks deeply, vowing to prevent his mentor's death in this life while Ren praises his appetite.
Laughter and conversation drift from the cabin as the group enjoys their evening.
Shadows lurk in the dark forest. A pale hand holds a glowing red crystal, invoking the power of the red moon.
Goblins with glowing red eyes scowl.
A heavy zoo sounds as a massive clawed foot steps onto the grass.
A horned silhouette looms over forest. The scene shifts to another adventure.
The next morning, Turf waves as the trio sets out for more goblin subjugation.
The group reflects on their improved teamwork and plans to finish the requests by the following day.
A rhythmic doki doki sounds as Marie hums happily while Will follows with a worried expression.
Ren's boots stop on the rough.
The teacher suddenly announces they are turning back, much to Will's confusion.
Marie and Will question the decision since they haven't encountered any enemies yet.
Ren points out the eerie, total absence of any signs of life in the area.
He explains that the territorial goblins should have attacked by now, making the silence highly suspicious. A soft saw sounds as birds flee the trees, and Ren advises them to trust their instincts.
The purple-haired man waves them toward the path, officially ending the patrol early.
Ren suggests they regroup with another nearby party for safety.
Marie mentions that Professor Veronica's group should be stationed at a base close to their location.
Ren smiles and agrees that stopping by their base is a good idea.
Will moves through the thick brush.
Will reflects on the monster's abnormal behavior and feels a growing sense of dread.
A loud gasa sounds as Marie pushes through the bushes toward the road.
Foliage opens to a sunlit clearing. Will's eyes widen in absolute shock.
A girl with her hands bound to a tall wooden stake comes into view.
Erica hangs limp and unconscious, tied securely to the wooden post.
A quick ta-ta sounds as Marie sprints forward, bowing to save her friend immediately.
Marie's boot digs into the turf.
Marie falls through a collapsing trapdoor, shouting in sudden back.
Will screams her name as she plummets into the darkness, her hand tightening around her weapon.
A heavy thud echoes as her massive blade strikes the earth, leaving the girl gasping for air at the bottom of the pit.
Marie looks up with a defiant smile and shouts that she is fine, despite the sharp spikes surrounding her.
Standing above the pit, Will realizes it was a trap and that Erica was used as the lure to catch them off guard.
Ren points into the distance and warns that even more enemies are approaching the clearing.
Sharp spears cut through the air. Will leaps forward to deflect the incoming projectiles with his knife while his mentor stands calmly behind him.
A massive, hairy leg steps into the field, towering over the two as they stand their ground.
A vast army of red-eyed goblins emerges from the tree line, snarling with murderous intent.
Marie struggles to pull herself from the pit, her heavy weapon resting nearby.
Will's eyes widen as he realizes they have been completely surrounded by the monsters. The trio finds themselves at the center of a massive circle of enemies, with Erica still bound to the stake behind them.
Will notes the monsters' cunning tactics, realizing they are actively hunting humans with organized coordination.
The boy reflects on how these calculated movements are identical to the monster behavior seen during the Red Moon. He realizes something is terribly wrong, as the Red Moon should not have appeared for another 2 years.
Shadows lengthen around the boy as he grips his diver.
Erica groans in pain, and Will is relieved to see that the girl is still alive.
Will focuses his energy into a glowing orb, resolving to use the power he gained to fight in this critical moment.
Marie regains her footing and joins her teacher, noting that while their friend is safe for now, the number of enemies is overwhelming.
Will drops to one knee and places his hand on a magic circle, declaring he will handle the situation by combining plant manipulation with a technique from a classmate.
He commands the earth to bring forth his creation as thick vines erupt from the grass.
The massive green vines lash out.
Huge wooden golems rise from the ground as Will calls out their name.
Will advises Marie that she no longer needs to stand on the front lines herself.
He explains that targeting archers behind the front lines is the best way to exploit openings, and Marie quickly confirms her understanding. Will tells the girl to focus on charging up her power properly while the golems provide a distraction.
A boot stomps firmly into Bigger.
Marie launches herself into the air as Will commands her to deliver a blow that will shatter the enemy's formation.
Marie grins fiercely and asks the monsters how they like her full power strike.
She cleaves through a charging Balwan.
Will slices through another enemy with a swift strike, promising to cover any stragglers that escape Marie's path.
Ren looks over his shoulder and praises the pair for their excellent teamwork. Will responds with a determined smile as he continues to fight off the surrounding goblins.
A sudden chill freezes the boy. An overwhelming sense of dread fills him. His eye twitches with sudden alarm.
He recalls that the red moon makes monsters vicious and capable of unnatural coordination.
Ren sprints across the grass toward the unconscious girl tied to the stake.
The earth suddenly cracks and buckles.
Will notes that the monsters are coordinating across different species as a massive creature begins to emerge.
Will shouts in alarm as a giant ogre erupts from the ground where it had been hiding.
The boy realizes with horror that he is too far away to reach his mentor before the giant strikes.
Will remembers that his mentor could never ignore someone in need, recalling a past life where the man was called the world's greatest healer.
He reflects that no matter how skilled a healer is, living such a selfless life would require many lifetimes of luck.
Will screams for his mentor as the ogre brings down a massive flaming fist.
He cries out again in desperation. Ren looks up with a sharp, calm gaze as lightning-like energy crackles around him. The ogre's massive fist smashes into the ground, creating a blinding explosion of dust and force. Ren casually brushes off the impact and asks if that's all the monster has to offer.
Will is astonished by his mentor's move, wondering if it was a physical enhancement or if Ren actually used healing magic offensively.
A sudden, quick dash sounding, Ren slides beneath the ogre's massive reaching on.
A bright flash sounding, Ren maneuvers behind the beast with impossible speed.
Placing a gentle hand on the back of the monster's neck, Ren bids the creature a polite goodnight.
A quick pop sounding, a burst of green energy envelops the ogre's head as a deep growl sounding escapes its gut.
A solid thud sounding, the massive creature collapses face first into the grass, leaving behind wisps of green vapor.
A rhythmic pitter-patter sounding as Will sprints over, asking about the incredible move he just witnessed, to which Ren casually confirms his suspicion.
With a cheerful smile, Ren remarks that a good mentor should also learn from his disciple, admitting he only just thought of the technique. Will notes the outcome was exactly as expected while Marie rushes toward them with a look of pure joy.
Marie praises the performance, exclaiming how cool the move was as she joins the group.
Looking over the field, Ren suggests they pull out while they have the chance as he begins untying the girl from the stake.
A quick glance sounding, Will watches his mentor with a thoughtful expression. Holding the rescued girl, Ren listens as Will asks why he wouldn't simply use his vast strength to wipe out all the surrounding enemies at once.
Ren dismisses the idea as foolish, explaining that he merely put the ogre to sleep, leaving Will bewildered.
A bright hum sounding, Ren explains that as a healer, he has no intention of actually hurting a monster, even one this dangerous.
A merry laugh sounding, Ren carries the girl away, joking that the ogre will actually feel great when it finally wakes up.
A light chuckle sounding, Will watches him walk away and reflects on how perfectly that attitude fits his teacher.
Narration confirms they successfully broke through the goblin encirclement as the group flees across the grassy plains.
After defeating a few remaining pursuers, the group watches as the rest of the monsters finally give up to chase.
Will finds a quiet spot to rest, suggesting they take a moment to catch their breath while Erica rests on a blanket.
A soft hum sounding as Ren kneels beside the girl, casting a gentle spell and telling her it's time to wake up.
Erica's eyes snap open with a sharp gasp as she returns to consciousness. Erica looks around in confusion, but Ren reassures her that she is finally safe.
Will apologizes for the timing, but asks Erica to explain what happened and why she was left all alone in the forest.
Erica clutches her head as she struggles to piece together her fragmented memories. She recalls yesterday's mission going well and feels relief that she didn't drag her teammates down during the fight.
She reflects sadly that whenever she starts to feel confident and gets carried away, something bad always seems to happen.
A quiet moment of introspection. She remembers waking up that morning to find that Professor Veronica had mysteriously vanished from the base.
Will is surprised to hear about Professor Veronica's disappearance, and Erica confirms the story. Erica explains that the professor left a note telling them to stand by, but the lack of a return time made her feel incredibly anxious.
She recounts how, while discussing the situation, her two classmates managed to talk her into going out to search for the professor alone.
Will realizes Erica was manipulated because she couldn't say no, noting it's a dangerous habit that could have easily cost her life.
A tight squeeze sounding as a hand clenches into a fist. Erica admits that after heading out, the next thing she can remember is waking up here with them.
A soft scratch sounding as Ren concludes the goblins must have used a sleep-inducing drug, wondering about the unusual coordination between the monsters.
Ren decides to stop overthinking for now, suggesting they head to Erica's nearby base to regroup with the remaining two students.
The quartet walks through the sun-drenched fields toward their destination.
Marie leads the way through the brush until someone suddenly calls for a halt.
Erica stops in her tracks, her eyes wide with sudden alarm.
Erica cries out in horror at the sight of the destroyed base, while Marie notes she had researched the area's safety beforehand. Marie explains that goblins are normally very territorial and shouldn't have attacked a base established outside their usual range. Marie wonders why this happened despite the safety protocols, while Will remains silent and deep in thought. Will recognizes these proactive attacks on humans as a trait typically seen only after the red moon, finding the current situation inexplicable.
Examining the ruins, Ren notes there are no signs of a struggle, suggesting the other two students likely managed to flee.
Ren orders the group to split up, directing the students to link back up with Turf and leave the forest while he searches for the missing pair.
Ren warns them to stay sharp even at their own base, and the students acknowledge his orders before departing.
A loud clatter sounding as Will and Marie burst through the cabin door. Turf is busy stirring a pot, surprised by their early return, and noting that lunch isn't quite ready yet.
A quick squeeze sounding as Marie grabs Turf's hands with a relief smile, thanking goodness that he is safe.
Will declares they must leave immediately and will explain everything later, prompting the other student to agree.
The boy gasps in sudden alarm. Will clenches his fist and notes they are being watched while Marie and Erica look on with worry.
He realizes they were being followed. A massive monster leads the horde.
Erica panics, frantically asking what their next move should be as the enemies surround them.
Will reflects on his past feelings of inadequacy and how he has struggled until now.
Marie and Erica look at the boy with sudden concern and confusion. Will smiles and suggests the three of them take down the monster together because he believes they can win. The beast glares with red eyes.
Will repeats his call for the trio to attack the massive leader together.
The boy declares his firm belief that they can achieve victory against the gathered enemies. Marie shouts that their teamwork is absolutely crucial against such a massive horde of monsters.
The goblin army waits for orders.
A quick rustle sounding as she nods, Will tells Marie to focus on landing strikes without pushing too far forward.
A quick hum sounding as Will uses a magic circle to summon wood columns to handle the vanguard.
Will orders Erica to stop the goblins with flames, but she hesitates, feeling incompetent after being captured earlier.
Will smiles and reassures the girl that her flames are very useful to the team's strategy.
Erica looks down as she tries to find her resolve despite her anxiety.
A soft breath sounding as she prepares herself.
A loud shout sounding as Erica unleashes a massive torrent of fire toward the enemy ranks. The flames consume the goblin front lines in a massive blaze that covers the field. Erica rejoices at her spell's success. Will notes the goblins are halted but is suddenly surprised by a movement in the fire.
A heavy stomp sounding.
The monster is unharmed by flames.
Will realizes this enemy is on a completely different level from the goblins they faced before.
A loud command sounding as Will directs his wood golem to charge at the beast.
A sudden crackle sounding as the golem begins to catch fire from the monster's intense heat.
The wooden golems are quickly destroyed. A sudden roar sounding as the monster grapples with the burning golem and easily overpowers it.
Will shouts for Marie to take her turn and strike the beast while it is distracted.
Marie delivers a powerful forward strike.
Marie and Erica share a joyful high five for their successful coordination in the heat of battle.
Will remains cautious, noting that while their teamwork was good, it clearly wasn't enough to end the fight.
The monster stands tall as Will warns his companions about its overwhelming strength.
A soft hiss sounding as the monster's wound begins to heal instantly.
Marie asks in shock if they must keep attacking until the creature finally stops reviving itself.
Will worries that there might not be a limit to its regeneration, making a standard attack useless.
He realizes they need a more certain method to defeat the beast once and for all.
The trio stands ready for battle.
A blinding flash sounding.
A sharp clang sounding as Will blocks a sudden attack with his blades.
A goblin lunges at the boy.
A sudden shout sounding as Will deflects projectiles while Erica screams about more enemies approaching.
A solid thud sounding.
Marie prepares a huge swing, declaring that she will finally return the favor to their enemies.
A massive slash stabbing. Marie notes that Will looks like he has thought of a plan and offers to handle the current fight.
A quick dash sounding as Will sprints forward, telling them he's counting on their support.
The team executes their plan with Erica's fire and the wood golems holding back the horde while Marie dispatches the remaining goblin throwers.
Will charges forward, declaring that he will personally handle the massive ogre. The beast's red eye narrows as it focuses on the approaching boy.
A sharp wind sounding as Will narrowly avoids a powerful swing from Yoder. Will dances around the monster's attacks, looking for an opening. The ogre snarls, baring its massive fangs in fury.
A deafening roar sounding as the beast lashes out at its agile opponent.
A wet slice sounding as Will's blades bite into the creature's flesh, drawing blood. The boy maneuvers into a blind spot with a swift movement. Will presses a glowing magic circle against the ogre's back, announcing that he is getting serious. A bright hum sounding as Will unleashes Life Rampage, flooding the monster with overwhelming energy.
A heavy thrum sounding as the ogre's internal organs begin to react violently to the magical overload.
The monster screams in agony while its body distorts under the pressure of the spell.
A sudden burst sounding as the creature's upper body explodes into a spray of blood and gore.
Will stands amidst the carnage, his face splattered with the remnants of his enemy.
A soft thud sounding as the boy lands gracefully on the breast.
He stares down at the mangled remains of the ogre, the threat finally extinguished. Will explains that by forcing the ogre's regeneration to work excessively, its own life force caused the fatal explosion. Turning back to the field, the boy prepares to sweep up the remaining goblins.
A clean slice sounding as Will decapitates a fleeing monster with ease.
Marie stands victorious atop a mountain of slain goblins, her sword sheathed as she surveys the field.
The battle finally settles, leaving Will standing beside a summoned wood golem.
A tired puff sounding as Erica leans over, exhausted from her magical exertion.
Marie cheers for their complete victory with a radiant smile.
A merry laugh sounding as Marie pulls Will and Erica into a celebratory hug, praising their coordination.
Will's expression turns serious as he notices an unusual sight on the horizon.
A distant howl sounding as a massive tornado of wind magic swirls in the distance. Marie points toward the phenomenon, identifying it as a sign of Sirius's presence.
Will suggests they head toward the storm to regroup with their other teammates.
A soft rush sounding as the silver-haired Sirius stands in a clearing, his wind magic slowly dissipating as the group asks if he is safe.
Sirius confirms he is unharmed and glad to see that the others are okay too. A loud call sounding as a large, scarred man steps forward to greet the arriving group.
Turf questions the odd group composition and asks about the whereabouts of the instructor and the other teams.
A light step sounding as Ren appears, leading the other two students back to the main group. Will runs over to his mentor, relieved that everyone has finally been found.
A gentle pat sounding as Ren praises the students for their hard work and survival.
Ren expresses his relief that none of them sustained any serious injuries during the chaos.
A thoughtful hum sounding as the large man realizes they are still missing one critical person.
Erica remembers Professor Veronica is still gone, and Turf insists they cannot leave the forest without her.
Ren orders those who are capable of fighting alone to split up and search for the missing instructor.
Sirius and Will acknowledge the command and prepare to scout the surrounding woods.
A light rustle sounding as Will sprints through the trees, focusing his senses to find any trace of her.
A quick twitch sounding as he tries to enhance his hearing, admitting he lacks the practice to identify specific targets yet.
A sharp gasp sounding as he catches sight of a familiar figure in a dark clearing.
Will feels a brief wave of relief, noting that the professor appears to be safe.
He starts to call out to her, but his voice catches as he notices something wrong.
A crackle of energy sounding as a gloved hand clutches a glowing red gemstone.
Professor Veronica stands silently, holding the gem as an ominous red aura surrounds her.
Will's eyes widen in terror as he recognizes the gem's light as being identical to the red moon.
A subtle rustle sounding as someone moves in the shadows nearby.
Professor Veronica asks what Will is doing in a place like this. Will explains that he was searching for her and mentions the field training has ended because the monsters went berserk.
Veronica suggesting they head back as she walks past a confused Will.
Will shouts for her to wait. The boy asks what that stone was that she hatches now.
Veronica looks away and claims that it was mething.
Will is suspicious, questioning what she was doing, leaving the other students behind for so long while she remained silent.
Will clenches his fist while pleading for her to answer him.
The professor apologizes but leaves her explanation unfinished.
Veronica draws her ceremonial blade, stating that she cannot afford to be too selective about her methods.
A soft grunt sounding as Veronica's eyes glow with an eerie blue light, commanding Will to remain silent about what he saw.
She walks away, telling him not to worry and insisting she won't do anything malicious.
Will reflects that he was unable to say anything more to Professor Veronica after that encounter. As they walk back, the purple-haired Ren watches them with a suspicious side glance. Riding in a carriage, Will admits he wasn't prepared for the situation.
He struggles with the weight of doubting his instructor, whom he remembers as a comrade from his previous life.
Standing alone in a courtyard, Will wonders if the professor is genuinely involved with the Red Moon.
The boy recalls his past life. Will looks toward a massive open gate.
He spots Professor Veronica or Hostility.
Will activates a spell for presence concealment, his hand glowing with green energy.
He watches from the shadows as the silver-haired woman speaks with a mustached official.
The official confirms he received her request to leave campus and asks for her destination.
Veronica walks away, coolly stating she has personal business to attend to.
Will suspects her business outside the school is linked to the mysterious red stone. The boy watches her from his hiding spot.